Rourke, Whiplash.
I'm seeing, like, just because I typed not another in, I'm getting all these, there's not another movie.
I have heard of that one. Not another church movie might be good.
Not another movie is 2.5 out of 10.
Oh, it's terrible.
I'm actually kind of chilly. I'm still in this blanket.
Not another sci-fi movie.
Well, things are gonna heat up pretty fast.
Jesse, why don't you cut the shift?
that was way funnier than it should have been. We can just keep this going, and I'll edit. So like it can be one.
Shit in there.
It can be one stream. I usually
Every
put
time.
the.
Every time.
What was that Looking Glass playthroughs video?
Don't put this in. You're like, oh yeah.
You're like, you're gonna put it in, aren't you? You just always put it in. When you made it part of the conversation, then it had to go in. At that point, there was no turning back. Kind of like right now, like you just like don't put it in, but then it becomes the discussion.
And we can't test it without Jonas speaking.
Oh, that's because I had it paused.
The whole time?
I have the microphone turned on this time. I see the red light, so I'm hopeful.
Red light is good.
Nice.
Jonas, can we hear you now?
Can you hear me now with the power of 5 bars? Praise Allah.
Crunch berries.
Jerkin. That's for all of our deep fans.
Dean and I were shooting each other with the Nerf gun out here.
Dick pants?
So I'm going to start this one, as cheesy as it sounds, by just saying thanks to everybody who watched part 1 and is still returning for part 2.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I know it sounds cheesy, like a generic thing to say, but legitimately, anyone that's sticking around to listen to us talk, that means a lot. And anyone that's keeping the channel alive, that's you guys. So
We appreciate you more than Jason appreciates Pamela Voorhees. Really.
that's a lot.
Mommy.
Kill her, mommy. Kill her. And also, I just want to say that we created a Discord for the channel. We put the link, I believe I put the link in part 1's description, but this is the first time that we've recorded since we created it. So look for the link in the description.
Get in that Discord. Cause havoc. There are no rules. There's some rules.
There are some rules, but not very many. And it's you guys, like I said, that are keeping this channel alive and going. So thanks again.
I'd like to thank our special guest. I'm just kidding. That guy.
We were coming back to the recording booth and found this guy on the side of the road again. Oddly enough, he wasn't doing anything, so we decided to invite him over and ask, what about the years 2001 to current? Now we got to find out what the rest of the movies are of the 40 years of the best horror.
I think this one's going to pick up a lot better. For the first set that we did, a lot of them I hadn't seen a lot of horror movies that were older, or if I had, there wasn't a lot of competition. It was pretty cut and dry. I either really liked something or I didn't.
Now all bets are off.
For these ones, I was torn between a lot of them, so, obviously we'll get all that out, but...
There were a few where I was split right down the middle. And that's probably going to be a clue for one of my picks that is going to be coming up.
And who will win this one?
Is there a winner?
There's a winner?
No matter
Battle
who
Royale.
wins, we lose.
Oh no, not the AVP reference.
Yes.
No.
And Josh Prizer, if you're listening right now, which I know you are, start making a tally for every movie you've actually seen, because it's going to be a rough one for you.
This is where this guy's knowledge of past movies is kind of going to bite him in the ass, because any of the ones we talk about going forward, he might not have seen.
Nothing. All right. Anyone have anything before we kick this off, or?
I just go back and say, again, thanks for listening. You guys are the reason that we keep doing this. And coming soon... iTunes support. Yeah.
iTunes.
Holy crap, we're actually going to be a legitimate podcast. Yeah,
Yes,
right.
for everyone who keeps asking how they can get the strictly audio, iTunes shortly. And Maybe the return of Castbox, but that's pending.
Yeah, we're figuring some things out on the technical side, so bear with us on that. But yeah, if you guys are ready, I'm ready. Let's jump right into this
Let's
thing.
do the same order we did last time. So unless somebody has a particular feeling of the picks for that year and we want to alter it, we'll go Jonas, and then Justin will follow, and then myself last.
We'll see if we have the exact same ones like last time.
Yeah, I doubt it. I see this being the split where we start picking different movies, but we'll see.
I think we might have a couple in common, but all right, I'm just going to... all pretense out the window. My 2001 pick for best horror movie is Dagon. What is this crap?
We don't know what this is.
Okay, so Dagon is a H.P. Lovecraft inspired, slightly lower budget horror movie. Still totally worth the watch. It's basically about a married couple that are on vacation. The town might be inhabited by fish people. We don't know exactly. Elder gods and strange creatures might be involved.
I like fish people.
Yeah, if you know about H.P. Lovecraft, he's had a long history of just having like the weird kind of half mutant, half monster kind of people in some of his movies, or not his movies, but his books.
It looks pretty wild.
Yeah,
looking at
Justin's looking up screenshots
stock
right now.
photos here.
He's found one with a scantily clad fish woman that's
with
giving
tentacles.
him some. She's giving him some nightmare fuel over there.
I don't think I've seen a lot of H.P. Lovecraft.
Some nighttime fuel, that's for sure.
I said nightmare, you sick bastard.
All right, so Justin.
I feel like we're gonna have the same one here, even though you just said we wouldn't. I chose 13 Ghosts.
Okay.
Matthew Lillard. I don't know what you want me to say.
I was like,
13 Ghosts. It's a good movie. We grew up on that.
I'll
I
throw
with
a
the
lot.
special features, and then you can go through each of the ghosts and tell you their backstory and everything. It was actually a really good movie.
So I want to say we've talked about 13 Ghosts and Ghost Ship a little bit on previous podcasts. I'm discovering more and more that a lot of horror fans hate those movies. They think they're really bad.
Which is saying something when Host gets voted best horror movie. I just throw my hands up in disbelief when I hear that.
Well, we'll get to that one, I'm sure. But
was that going to be one of your picks?
I mean, no, but but yeah. So I would say that it might be worth defending why you like this movie a little bit, given that there are a lot of people out there that really don't like 13 Ghosts.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's really unique. It brought a lot to the table. It brought the whole glass. I guess there was an original.
Yeah.
Correct.
And,
so I can't credit everything to it, but the concept behind it, you put on glasses to see ghosts. There was the whole glass house. It seemed like there was a lot going on that could keep you occupied. All the ghosts were unique, as I said before. Some good kills.
Goats. Not goats.
Ghosts.
I think the 3D or the glasses came from the element of the original 13 Ghosts was one of those 4D movies, right? Where they would try and put smells out and things in the audience and make it feel like you're in the movie.
Yeah.
I think it was one of those old-timey movies. And so, like, when you went into the theater, you would put on these glasses that let you see the ghosts, and then they worked it into the movie for the remake.
Also, just on the record here, cosplayers often do like 13 Ghost themes too.
At
I still see them even at regular cons.
Really?
Sometimes I feel like I see some of those, and
Some
obviously
of those the designs were iconic. Like really, the like the Madman or the Maniac or whatever they call him, the guy with the his head in a box.
Jackal.
The Jackal. It's been a while since I watched this movie.
And sometimes that'll keep it in a better place in our hearts too. If you haven't seen it in a while.
Why is okay? And this is one thing that I just remembered from this movie. It's like they continued the '90s tradition of ending every horror movie with a rap song.
Oh no, they did.
Yes, they did. As soon as the credits rolled, it was yo yo. Let me tell you about the 13 Goes. Like
that was Jonas's favorite part.
I got that song memorized. Yeah.
Matthew Lillard really doesn't like the movie either, but he doesn't like horror, even though he does all the horror movies. And
but he likes doing it for the fans.
yeah,
He did say that.
I'm sure he enjoys doing it. But he's like, I've only done 2 horror movies. No, you haven't, but we'll let it go.
So is that like a you haven't seen Shaq act kind of thing?
No,
Shaq acts.
I digress.
There's been rumors for a long time, and even Roland came up to me today and said the same thing, and I don't think it's legit, but he had mentioned, oh, well, you know they're going to do a 13 Ghosts mini-series where every episode's a different ghost, and they'll go through the 13 ghosts. And I don't think it's happening. That's been talked about for a while now, but that would be really cool if they actually did that.
I haven't seen any news about that.
But wouldn't that be pretty legit?
I mean, I'd watch it, definitely.
Remake, but in miniseries form, where they give each ghost their own backstory or their own episode to go through. But anyway, mine's kind of a cop-out. So, initially, I had 13 Ghosts, but I changed it, not because there was ever any question as to which film I liked more, but I changed it to Donnie Darko, because I initially wasn't going to include Donnie Darko, because it's more so a drama than a horror film, but it definitely has strong horror elements in it, and Frank is a horror icon of sorts. So eventually I did decide to include Donnie Darko on the list.
I was right there too. Like I saw that when I was scrolling through for 2001, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to let Jesse take this one because I'm 100% sure that you're going to choose this movie.
If I knew that was the year that came out, I would say that. But let me just say, horror icon, he doesn't even have a Funko Pop.
He has a dwerp. Funko whatever that thing is, the little mini one.
Like, I only collect Dorbs.
that's what it was. So it's not my fault that Funko dropped the ball on an iconic character. Alright? That's on them. Donnie Darko's, if not my favorite, it was my favorite film for a long time. I don't know if it still is. I have to give it a rewatch, but it's definitely up there on my favorite list.
I think it's pretty awesome that they include Evil Dead, the original one, in the movie. And whenever he sneaks out of the movie theater to go do something, I won't be spoilerish in case anyone hasn't seen this movie yet, but when he comes back to the theater, it's playing the very end of the movie with Bruce Campbell screaming, and that's what wakes up his girlfriend. And I thought that was just a great edit together.
Well, it's even weirder because a portal opens in the movie screen, and he doesn't leave the theater. He goes through the portal on the movie screen.
And the Evil Dead is about weird portals too in the second one. There's a tie in there somewhere.
The first time that I ever watched Donnie Darko was on our computer at home on YouTube. They had the whole movie in parts on YouTube, and I had headphones on. And the first time that Frank spoke, it freaked me out so bad because he's not on screen. It's just a voiceover, and his voice is so creepy. So I always remember that. So some of the other picks for 2001 that we didn't mention, Valentine is a good one. That was Jamie Blank's second film.
Cupid Mask.
Yeah, Jamie Blanks, who did Urban Legend, that was his next film that he did. And Jeepers Creepers is a popular one that came out that year. Session 9.
Oh yeah, I do remember that one. Did that have Seth Green in it?
Do it, Gordon. No. It's the guys that are cleaning the asbestos from the mental institution.
That's right.
And he keeps finding the tapes, these sessions, if you will, and listening to them throughout the film about a disturbed patient or something. It's okay. It's got a lot of creepy elements, but it never really clicks over into a great film for me. I've seen it a couple of times, but I don't know. It's creepy. And the last mention here is Scary Movie 2.
I don't think we mentioned Scary Movie 1 ever.
That came out...
I want to say
that came out in 2000. That was our last film we did in the last podcast.
And Jonas vowed to murder us all if we brought it up, correct?
I brought it up because I also brought up Shriek, if you know what I did last Friday the 13th.
Oh.
He vowed to kill us all if we picked it for the best movie.
Okay.
But
which we just didn't tell him.
I'm going to say, I'm just going to go out and say it. I thought Scary Movie 2 was better than the first one.
Not even by a long shot. Not even close.
I thought the characters were better.
I like 1 better just because I like the movies that parodies better. Although there is that, I swear it's an urban legend reference in the opening where the girl's singing in the car and she's just terrible and the voice is just like, "Hey, shut up! Will you let me sing?" That's from the opening. Yeah, that's from the opening of Urban Legend. But, Jonas.
Oh, we're moving on. We are on to O2. And this one is definitely a personal favorite of mine. And I would be surprised if you guys might have the same one on this one. Mm-hmm. I am not going very far out there. I'm not going out on a limb on this one.
Oh, man. Should we make guesses? Or
Do not take the low-hanging fruit.
Don't take the low-hanging fruit.
If you want to take a guess, I think you might be pleasantly surprised. You might be right.
I think your pick is 28 Days Later.
No.
All right. I'm gonna be so proud of you, Jonas. If it is, I feel like I can't guess mine without saying that it's mine, right? So, like, you just go ahead and say it.
Okay. Mine is Gore Verbinski's The Ring.
Okay.
Now,
you thought he would say Ghost Ship because we just talked about it.
No, okay, so here's the long and short of it, really, is just that when I first saw that movie, I think when a lot of us first saw that movie, it has one of the most iconic jump scares of almost any movie in the 2000s. When it does that really quick cutaway to see how the girl died in the opening scene, or what she looked like after she had died. And it's so fast. And I remember watching it with like groups of people when it first came out. The screams in the room from some of the girls watching this were like chilling. It just went...
When he says some of the girls watching this, it was Jonas.
It was
Jonas was screaming.
But it was this movie went from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds, and then from the rest of the movie on, you're just waiting for something else to happen like that again. Is the next scream going to be something crazy again? But then they told a really good story. The music is amazing in that movie too. The soundtrack is great. I wish I could find it on vinyl, but yeah, good luck. I don't even know if they ever actually put that one out. You know, Waxworks. Anybody listening from that company, hey. There's an idea for you, free of charge. But also, I just wanted to say, Gore Verbinski, the guy that directed this one, he has just this artistic eye for movies where just everything is well thought out, from costume to scenery to lighting. He's also the same guy that directed A Cure for Wellness.
Yeah.
And that's a really good one, too, if you haven't seen that one. But fair warning to the audience out there, it is a messed up movie, and it is kind of a hard watch.
Where are we?
Yeah,
where are we right now?
You guys know me.
The knife shift.
I go out there with some of my picks, but I'd say if you got that one as a rental, even, you would not be disappointed. But yes, The Ring, O2. Last thing I'll say about it, real quick. Don't mean to take up a lot of time on this one, but we were talking about the 13 Ghosts, like the DVD extras.
Yes.
Like, the original Ring DVD had one of the greatest hidden special features ever.
The tape?
Yes. On the main menu, you could scroll over, and you know how like the icon would show like hopping from one selection to another? It would move off screen, and it would just disappear. And then if you hit enter, you could watch the complete, unedited Ring videotape. And then, to get even spicier, after it was done, it kicks you back to the main menu. A phone starts ringing on the main menu screen.
That's really cool.
Oh my god, it's giving me goosebumps even describing it, because it was just such a great addition to that. And nobody knew it was on there until I pointed it out to people. So if you have a DVD copy of The Ring, have at it if you're brave. Don't blame me if you get a phone call.
They all die.
Alright, what do you got, Justin?
So, what do you think I have, Jesse?
Ghost Ship.
Wrong.
Wrong?
I love some Ghost Ship. You know what I mean? Just talk about another... Everything here, I feel like I'm going to keep saying is an iconic horror for me. And that's just because, you know, we were at that ripe age. And, you know, early 2000s, we were like...
2002, you were 10?
Yes. Listen. Okay. We're not going to judge.
No judgment.
But you know what I mean? I mean, everything shaped us. But I have to go with Cabin Fever.
Oh, no.
Cabin Fever deserves a lot of love.
Did I say I wasn't judging a minute ago?
No,
Now you're
I
judging.
told you not to
Okay.
judge.
Well,
Eli Roth. It's Cabin Fever. I love it. Like, I don't know what the rules on spoilers for movies are because, I mean, it's so old.
I kind of
But
think
it's-
if we want to give out some spoilers on stuff that's once we hit about 2015 or so, I think we should probably back off of spoilers because maybe it's like the 10-year rule, something like that.
So, spoiler. Pause, skip ahead like 15, 30 seconds if you really want to. But how great is it? A group of kids go out to party and stuff. They just make a bet, like, let's only drink alcohol. And then that's actually what was saving them. Mm-hmm. As they were giving up on, like, oh, I can't just keep drinking alcohol. And as they would start to drink water, the water was actually killing them. Like, that's kind of genius.
Yeah, that was pretty smart.
It's got the iconic shaving scene.
I have that picture signed.
Yeah.
I
Dean
think
always
it's a
asks
shovel
me.
scene.
He always asks me what happened to her leg.
Oh, no. You're going to have to explain that someday,
I do.
Dad.
I already did.
Oh, she had a disease and she went to shave and it
A
peeled
flesh-eating
the skin off.
virus is how I described it.
All right, well.
Your kid's gonna be ready for anything.
The weird biter kid. And then
Yeah.
that ending is so dumb, in my opinion. He's like this.
You
the
just don't like it.
The banjo's playing, and everyone just gets shot. And
I actually
I love it.
have only watched this movie once, but I've watched the remake more recently. And the remake is what I remember more. Like when I said the shovel scene, that's what I was thinking of.
The
was
remake is horrible.
compared to the original.
Horrible. Never watch the remake. I
Compared to
love the
anything?
first one, and I'm not like a hater on remakes. The remake of Cabin Fever is so bad. Acting is bad. They changed all the wrong things. It's horrible. Yeah. If you ever want to watch Cabin Fever, make sure you're watching the right one because the remake is just called Cabin Fever as well. Make sure you're watching the 2002 Eli Roth's Cabin Fever.
Okay.
I might have to go back and give it another watch.
I'm going to have to go back and never watch it again. But my pick was Ghost Ship. And Ghost Ship's always been my favorite of the two, the 13 Ghosts and Ghost Ship. I know you've always leaned more toward 13 Ghosts, and I've always leaned more toward Ghost Ship. I think that opening scene where everyone gets cut in half is so memorable. Everybody still brings that up whenever you talk about the movie. I just love the atmosphere. Maybe it's my ocean phobia kind of ties in with it. I don't know. Or maybe it started as a series of films that started my ocean phobia. I don't know. But Quinn from Dexter's in it. And I remember the final outro is Mudvayne, for better or worse.
I mean,
So-
it's not a rap song for once on there.
You know, you're right. And I believe those were directed by the same person, so, you know, he evolved. I don't have much more to say on Ghost Ship. I do want to run down some of the other titles quick that caught my eye. As I mentioned, 28 Days Later, that's a really good film. Zombie films probably aren't going to break my favorite lists. I'm just not very partial to them particularly.
That one did have a naked Cillian Murphy.
That one is the best. It's definitely my favorite zombie film. People will argue it's not a zombie film. They're zombies.
They're zombies. They're rage zombies.
Yeah. Blade 2 came out that year. That was kind of a horror film.
It was okay.
Was that the one with Ryan Reynolds, or was
That
that
was
Trinity?
the third one.
That
We don't
was-
speak of the third one.
It was my favorite. It was the one where the vampires and the vampire hunters have to kind of team up because there's a crossbreed that vampires are eating other vampires or
The
something.
mutant vampires are attacking both humans and vampires, so they have
Yeah.
to team up. And one of the vampires is Ron Perlman in that
Okay.
one. And I think that was like shortly before they made Hellboy. So it was like he was dipping his toe into
Before the
like
biker gang.
Oh yeah.
Eight-Legged Freaks came out that year.
Oh man, that was a good one.
Fear.com. I don't know if any of you guys saw that.
I saw that in the theater,
It's basically The Ring, but with a website.
and it was what's his name from True Detective,
Yeah.
and one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres.
Which True
wasn't
Detective?
it? Wasn't it the villain from
Blade?
Blade?
Yeah, from the original Blade.
Oh.
Yeah.
Stephen Dorff. I
Season
always
3.
blanked on his name.
Season 3 of True Detective.
Yeah,
The original.
season 1. Yeah.
I'm going to bite my tongue and not say season 2. Let's get Ju-on the Grudge. The original came out that year. And to be honest, I don't remember the original one very well. So it didn't make my list. But The Grudge freaks me out more than anything else. And, as you mentioned, The Ring. So those are some other movies that we could have picked. And we didn't because they weren't as good.
Yeah, I'm going to stay in The Ring on 2002, definitely.
What do you got for 2003, Jonas?
Well, this is going to be one that I'm sure we all have the same one in common.
We don't.
I mean, I'll be amazed.
We don't.
You guys didn't pick Beyond Reanimator.
He's lying.
I knew it.
It's it's the age-old tale of a man with serum that can bring the dead back to life, and then they murder people. You know, that old good bedtime story.
Yeah.
And, it just goes Reanimator, then it goes Bride of Reanimator, and now Beyond Reanimator. Because at the end of Bride of Reanimator, the main
Spoiler.
doctor goes to jail. And in this one, he gets out of jail and he's ready to start his experiments again.
Just to clarify, are you talking about the plot is being reanimated or the film series as a whole? They just keep reanimating the movies.
It's both. It's really both, yeah. But really, I mean, it's loosely based on an H.P. Lovecraft story, so I kind of gotta give that my vote, because I've always been a Lovecraft fan. I won't take up too much time on this one.
So I had a tough decision. I'll tell you which one I picked, and then I'll tell you what my honorable mentions were and why.
I'll say
and I
this.
know that you'll probably be interchanging your own thoughts.
I'll say this. This was a great year for horror films.
It was a solid year.
It's a great year. There's so many favorite movies in this year.
So I went with Final Destination 2 because
Nice.
the opening sequence is, in my eyes, and I think probably widely accepted as the best opening for Final Destination. Everyone driving down the road thinks about that logging truck and how those logs could just shoot right through the solid steel of that car and just decapitate you or just, do all sorts of damage.
There's been a couple of times where I've been behind a logging truck and I just pull off to the side of the road, decide I'm going to wait a minute, let some other people go ahead.
Legitimately?
Legitimately. Yeah, but
Nice.
it wasn't like small logs either. It was like the size of the ones like miniature redwood trees or something up on this thing. I'm like, no. Like,
No.
I'm sure OSHA regulations are like they're strapping them down really well, but
So
I just can't get that scene out of my head.
I know that Jesse will probably touch upon this too, because I know it's just widely one of his favorite movies too. Not top 5, but something we've both loved. But I watched the second one before I watched the first one, so also it was my first Final Destination film, which probably has a lot to do with it as well.
That might be true for me as well. I want to say
I believe Joel brought
it over.
Yeah.
And again, we couldn't watch that stuff, so when he brought it over, it was like, all right, let's do this.
It changed our lives forever. Actually, real quick side note, I was telling Jesse just the other day that Dean was with me at the gym, and he was telling me about how him and his cousins went on the skylift at the zoo. And of course, my son and Jesse's daughter were just talking about falling scenarios where, like, maybe they would hit this on the way down, or what would maybe they fall like this and die. And I was like telling him, and I was like, of course it's our kids. Mine's only 5, and how old is October?
9.
So I mean, I was like, that's just us. That's just how we were.
Yeah.
So perfect. I told him Final Destination, and we talked about how it changed our lives. The honorable mentions that I had, which may be Jesse's pick, is Dreamcatcher, because Dreamcatcher is fantastic.
That is 100% my pick.
And then I'll let you get to that. But real quick, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Good remake.
Is that the one that we watched at Joel's house?
Cole's.
Or Cole's house. Yes, that's what I meant.
Joel and Cole.
No, yeah.
Cole's
At
house,
Cole's,
yeah.
because I remember, like, it was pretty scary.
That's the Michael Bay's production, Platinum Dunes, the Platinum Dunes remake.
I know it's not like widely accepted.
It kind of is. It's widely accepted now as being the better of the main franchise remakes.
Little did we know at the time that it came out. Like, I saw it in the theater, and I remember thinking, like, it was okay, but I still like some of the old ones better. But as the years have gone on, like you said, we had no idea the crap fest that we were in for Texas Chainsaw.
The scene at the end of that movie where it's like the found footage and then they found him. That used to be so creepy.
Yeah. Because we were kids, we thought it really was a real movie.
And when I say like it was creepy, I'm not saying it gave me nightmares or anything like that, but we were so used to watching horror movies, oddly enough, that not a lot of movies really scared me. Like, there was good horror movies and there was bad ones, but they weren't always scary. So for this one, the reason that was such an honorable mention for me is I was like, that one was actually scary.
Yeah, no, I'll agree. They did a good job on that one. Arlie Ermy as the sheriff was just one of the best characters for any of the movies.
So you said you had Dreamcatcher, so what do you have to say about
it? Dreamcatcher is possibly one of my favorite movies that notoriously is considered a bad movie. A lot of people trash on this film. They hate it. A lot of it has to do with the fact that the alien creatures, like, they grow in your stomach or whatever, and they come out your butt. And people are like, oh, like, that's gross and dumb, and how am I going to be scared of the toilet? No, that's frightening. Like, if you had something growing inside of you and that's how it came out and it, like, tore its way out, like, be as immature about it as you want. Like, that's frightening.
I mean, biologically, it kind of makes sense, right? If something's growing inside your tummy or your belly or your stomach, the easiest exit point is probably the rectum, right? I mean...
Well, a xenomorph would disagree.
Yeah.
But it makes more sense.
Make your own path.
Yeah, I mean, the cast is great.
Golden cast.
Jason Lee, Thomas Jane,
Timothy
Olyphant.
And good old Morgan Freeman.
You didn't even...
Damian Lewis.
What about the guy that was in Band of Brothers?
Damian Lewis.
Oh, okay. I was saying, he was phenomenal, too.
Yeah, he's great. I had seen Dreamcatcher before Band of Brothers, so when Band of Brothers came around, it was like, Jonesy! I love it. I've seen it so many times. It's a long movie, so...
Morgan Freeman didn't get an honorable mention, and that's who you parody most.
Possibly, but his character was never one of my favorite characters from the movie.
Bucko.
I liked Michael Madsen in that. He was the one of the other army guys that was always pushing back against what Morgan Freeman's character was doing.
Oh, yeah. He was alright. I don't remember who played Duddits, but it was somebody famous.
Yeah, I couldn't say on that one.
What's the one, The Departed?
I love The Departed so much.
Top 5 he's in
movies of all time.
He's in The Departed, but I can't remember.
If you're trying to say that he's Leonardo DiCaprio, you're wrong. You're talking about Gilbert Grape or What's Eating Gilbert Grape or whatever it is.
He was Donnie Wahlberg.
Yeah, Donnie Wahlberg.
He was not in The Departed.
No, he wasn't the cop.
That was a different Wahlberg.
Okay. Well, at least it was a Wahlberg.
That was Mark Wahlberg. Yeah.
Oh, was it? That's great. Well, you know,
there's so many Wahlbergs, and
as
soon as we get into the who is it? The Baldwins. Like, how many of those are there? Like 5 or 6.
I just can't catch a break. I have a poster. A big 27x40 poster of Dreamcatcher in my house. I've always thought that the art for Dreamcatcher was really cool. And we go to a lot of conventions. I don't have any signatures on this thing, but whenever I think, what are the ideal actors I could meet at a con and have sign something? And that's what I think of. Just one day it would be so cool to have that poster signed by Timothy Olyphant or Jason Lee. And I also have read the book. I read the Stephen King book.
That's one of the longer ones, too, isn't it?
Yeah. I enjoyed that. It's mostly the same. There's a bit where Mr. Gray in Jonesy's body discovers that he has a taste for bacon. And there's a part where he wanders into a grocery store craving bacon and just starts chowing down on raw bacon. It's really gross.
Oh no.
But that didn't make it into the movie, but for the most part it's pretty similar. Some of the honorable mentions here, a big one that you didn't mention, that I didn't mention, Darkness Falls.
Oh my goodness.
Darkness Falls came out this year. That was such... It's a PG-13 horror that's probably considered not very great, but we grew up on that. We watched it so many times. And
tormented my best friend with that movie.
Go ahead. Tell the story.
So, my best friend didn't really like horror movies, and obviously he was over all the time. We were best friends, and we would try to get him to watch it, and he would never want to watch it because he's like, I'm not watching it. He would literally like go outside, and you know how it was back in the day. Like, he'd be outside the house somewhere, and we were inside just watching a movie because that's just how it was. You just go there and do whatever, you know? Well, I told him the movie was over. I'm like, oh, the movie's over. Come back in, you know? We pull him in, and like he's like, okay, and it's like it's at the spoiler. The very ending of the movie is like
it's the one last. It
makes
scene.
You think that it's like it's over, and he comes in, and it's like, okay, we beat him and everything, and then he's standing there, and then it comes back one last time. It scares
one last scare.
He was not happy.
That was the one about the tooth fairy, right?
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like.
I mean, it was kind of like they did have one scene in that you got to give credit. It was.
I give credit to
it
the
was
whole
the
movie.
scene when it was. I believe it was the beginning when because you can't look at it is the gimmick there.
Right.
And so the little girl has like the cover over her face, and she's just like sitting there. And we've all been there when we were a kid, right? You cover yourself up, and you're like, "What's going on?" Maybe it's because we watched this damn thing, but then you like peek out, and then it's just right there. It's like right in front of your face. Like you've all had that feeling, right? Where you're like, you close your eyes or you cover your face, and you think like, this thing is like right on me. And then she just, of course, it's right there, and then kills her. So
fun fact that might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's not wrong. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it. So the main character, it starts out when he's a kid, and his girlfriend or friend or whatever that climbs through the window, I'm pretty sure she's played by Emily Browning, who also plays the little girl in Ghost Ship.
Or, that's what I meant.
Now she's in American Gods, which got canceled. So let's not talk.
Not caught up. So
yeah, I have a rough time trying to get through season 3 of that one.
We also had Freddy vs. Jason that year. I know that's it's a cheesier one, but that was a big movie.
Did we really?
Yeah, Freddy vs. Jason.
So on that, I really got to say something for Freddy vs. Jason. I did not realize it was that old.
Yeah.
Just the other week or whatever, I was at my best friend's house for a party, and I threw that one on, just like we were getting ready for bed or whatever. And I remember liking that movie a lot. And let me just tell you, it was horrible.
Yeah,
it really opened my eyes on the nostalgia train of just like, how many of these movies have I already talked about in part 1 and will talk about that I haven't rewatched in a while, that I'm saying all these great things, and they're probably god-awful. Because, like I said, I don't remember there being any issues with me watching Freddy vs. Jason. I thought it was really good, and I know it's not widely liked or anything like that. But rewatching it, I was like, this acting is horrible. Like, everything about this is horrible. It was so cheesy.
I wouldn't say that it's not widely liked, but much like the other films in the Friday the 13th franchise, I think people had come to understand that they were going to be a certain level of cheese at that point.
I was just kind of shook to my core of, wow.
You can't come back from Takes Manhattan. As soon as we got there was no coming back.
I like Freddy vs. Jason. I still remember the awful got your nose scene. But, like, it was fun. It was fun enough, the concept that Freddy he has to get stronger by getting Jason to kill and make people think it's him. That's kind of clever. That was a big movie when it came out, so it's definitely worth mentioning. Underworld was a big movie that came out that year.
I still haven't watched that one.
Another one of our personal favorites, or at least mine, was Willard, came out that year. That's a good one.
With Ben.
Also a remake.
Yeah. What was the original? What's the original called, Willard, or was it called something else?
We went full circle back to American Gods.
Because they had Ben. Oh, yeah, Crispin Glover. Yep.
There was an original movie called Willard, but then the sequel was called Ben.
Okay, yep.
And then they remade Willard. And I don't think... They didn't remake Ben, though, did they?
I don't think so.
So, really, wow.
What
a crazy year.
Wrong Turn came out that year. I know that devolved into an endless franchise of awful films.
They just shoveled them out the door at some point.
But the original is a good standalone film. And Identity was that year. That's a good one. One of my favorites.
That's a good one, but it's really... It's tough to make the case that it's a horror movie.
It definitely has slasher elements in
Right. It does.
But it's got a lot of psychological...
psychological thriller kind of thing.
I like John Cusack, so...
Like I said...
I always like how you say Cusack.
How do you pronounce it?
Cusack.
Cusack?
Because there's the porn actor, John Cusack.
Oh, should have known.
It's the play on John Cusack.
You hadn't thought of the porn actor.
You stupid bitch.
We didn't say it. Me and Jesse are over here like just mining, and then Jonas just spills the beans.
We have an explicit setting on iTunes that we can check off, so we're fine.
So like I said, that was a great year for horror. And I know I didn't comment much on your pick of Final Destination 2, but that you're right. That is one of the few sequels that it's very hard to single out which one is better. Because the plot ties in really nicely, and the links to the first film.
Even the kills.
The kills
are better than the first one.
The opening sequence is great. So
I thought the opening sequence for the NASCAR one was the best one.
Shut your mouth. All right, 2004. Go ahead, Jonas.
All right, what do we got for 2004? We're probably not going to have the same one, but... It was actually you, Jesse, that got me to watch this movie.
Okay.
Because I had talked about how I scroll through, I don't know if it was Netflix or Shudder or something, and I said, like, I keep seeing this movie pop up, and I think it looks kind of dumb, and you're like, oh, what is it? And I say what it is, you're like, oh, no, that's a really good movie, you gotta watch it. And it became my favorite 2004 horror movie.
Are we allowed to do parodies?
It's Creep.
Oh, Creep?
Yes.
Did you think he was going where I was going with that?
Do you know about peaches? Peach fuzz?
Millions of peaches.
Hold on. All right, well...
There's another movie called Creep.
Okay.
From 2004.
Okay.
You can mention it.
So, I had a goof. When I was going through and making my selections for the years, I was using a wiki site that was just a long list of every movie that came out that year. So I saw Creep on 2004 and didn't realize that I was looking at a completely different movie than the Creep that came out much, much later. So I'm going to have to revise my answer to this one.
So here's what we're going to do. Here's the easy method. If you want to look stuff up while we're going, go ahead. But Justin's going to go first this time.
Yeah, that's
We'll
fine.
give you a minute, and then we're going to go over some other movies. Then you can chime in at the end what your replacement film's going to be. So,
all right.
Justin, what do you have?
So, when I made my list, I was going to go under the impression that we couldn't use any parody-esque movies because we're talking horror. I know it's like there's two horror comedies that came out this year. Do you know what they are?
I would say they count, but...
If they count, then it changes my answer.
Okay.
So, the two horror comedies, Shaun of the Dead and Club Dread.
Yeah.
Two phenomenal movies. I didn't pick them because I figured we're going strictly horror and not comedy.
I mean, if you prefer the strictly horror, go that route.
I mean, for 2004, I would pick Club Dread, hands down, if we're talking parody. But if we're not talking parody, I went with Saw.
Okay.
But another added note, I just was looking here to kind of give Jonas a heads up on what kind of some of the movies were. I just pulled it up on my phone real quick. I didn't realize that they had Mindhunters under horror.
Oh, okay.
So that beats Saw. So I guess my real answer then is Club Dread. But the other ones, honorable mentions. Mindhunters is phenomenal.
Club Dread is so great. And I remember the first time we watched it, it was like, you know how you watch a movie in an awkward situation where it's dead silent. And like maybe you watch a teen movie in front of your parents and it's a little awkward and nobody speaks and you can hear people just kind of gulping. It probably wasn't to that degree, but the first time we watched Club Dread, our older brother Josh convinced our stepdad to pick it out. Like, oh, this is going to be real funny. And so we watched it with them in a group. And
Lots of sex in that one.
They were not impressed with the movie. And I remember Josh, trying to apologize to him, oh, the commercials made it look real funny. I'm sorry. And they hated it so much. And we loved it. Just the flip on that, where they were the ones that wanted to watch this and picked it out. And then we were just there for the ride. And then they hated it. And it was awkward.
And we loved it.
And we, had to quietly
cheer it on.
Yeah, we weren't going to let them know that we loved it. But we're just I remember asking Josh later, can I have it? Because you hated it.
You're I'll throw it away for you.
But yeah, Club Dread stuck with us. That's a great one. And I will say...
Did you pick Shaun of the Dead then? Because I noticed you haven't talked about it, and I know you're a big Edgar Wright fan.
So I almost went Club Dread, even over Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, wow.
Edgar Wright's my favorite director, but... Having said that, Shaun of the Dead isn't my favorite Edgar Wright film. It's a great film. But I felt like my hands were tied on this year. And I feel like you know why, Jonas. Do you know what it is?
If you say something about the seed or bride or anything Chucky, I'm going to slap the both of you.
Do you know what it is, Jonas?
I'm wondering if you picked Saw.
I did not pick Saw. I picked The Grudge.
Okay, yeah.
The Grudge over Club Dread and Shaun of the...
He was just saying earlier that it's the freakiest thing in the world to him.
The Grudge is one of the only scary movies that can still scare my desensitized soul. It freaks me out, and I feel like it being the most effective horror movie to me, it deserves to at least win for that year. I know The Grudge isn't considered the best movie, but it definitely earned its popularity. And it's one of those movies where you watch it and you forget immediately that it's PG-13 because it still brings the scares, and I really couldn't pick any other movie. I love Club Dread, but whenever I pick a movie from the shelf, 75% of the time I'm going the serious, dark, strict horror movie over the horror comedy. So that's what I did this time.
Which brings him to his real pick, which was The Village.
I didn't even put that for a mention. So, Jonas, did you pick one?
I did.
All right.
And just to get it out of the way, dogs can look up.
Is that the name of the movie or a random statement?
That's a Shaun of the Dead quote.
Player 1 has entered the game. Aren't you supposed to be at work? Player 1 has left the game.
Shaun of the Dead's great.
Yes, Shaun of the Dead is my pick.
Oh, it is your pick.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
After browsing for a quick 5 minutes to see the rest of the movies from 2004, I've got to go with Shaun of the Dead. I mean, not only is it one of the greatest Edgar Wright films, in my opinion, because I think between that and Hot Fuzz, it's kind of neck and neck for me. But I loved the use of music in that movie. Everybody knows the Queen scene is so iconic. Just I know, you're I even say it, and Justin's already bobbing his head around this, thinking about,
whacking him with a pool stick.
We all turned into bobbleheads in that moment.
And I just want to say how awesome it was that in like London or England of all places. I don't know if it was London where it was based, but they had a bar called the Winchester with a working rifle above the counter. And the whole time they're arguing whether or not it's real. It can't be real. He's, well, no, it's really real. And then they actually get it and it works. But in true British fashion, not a damn person knows how to use it. That's like the best part. They have a gun. Let's take turns trying to use it. Yeah, this is a great idea. And of course, that's great that they work in. I love how he does his humor. How it's all like callback to itself. Like the self-referential stuff. A lot of people hate that. But it's like earlier in the movie, they're talking about something and they're just like, cock it. But then later on in the movie, they've got the gun and it won't shoot and he's like, cock it!
Yes, that's Edgar Wright's films in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Just the callbacks.
Our entire life as being brothers is a callback upon every single stupid thing we've ever said to each other.
So you see why these movies appeal to me so much.
But yeah, I could easily do a rewatch of that one with a group of people, or even by myself. Which, I've probably seen it at least 10 times at this point.
Next time I see him, he's dead.
I was fortunate enough to win the Steelbook of Shaun of the Dead at the last Halloween party.
Yeah, it's a great prize, right?
Yes.
I also have a Steelbook of that, but it's not the same one. Just like we both have Steelbooks of Scott Pilgrim. But mine is, in Jesse's opinion, the better one.
Yeah.
Like, I always have to lord it over. I'm like, oh, look what I got.
Yeah. Mine's in better shape than yours, though.
Yeah.
Which is the only reason I haven't traded you. But
mine came out of a pawn shop, so what are you going to do?
Another film that came out that year, AVP.
I saw that, and I'm like, you already mentioned it in the opening.
Yeah.
Me and Jesse seen that together in theaters. Or did we watch Requiem in theaters?
I saw both.
I think we saw Requiem in theaters. You went back for more.
Yes.
He loves the first one.
I grew up with Aliens and Predator. I can't help myself. If they make a new one, I will go see it. I will hate myself for having spent $20 on a ticket and popcorn to go watch this piece of crap. But I still do it anyway.
They have a new Predator movie coming out, and it looks pretty decent. Series?
It's a series.
No, it's a movie. Prey?
I believe it's a series.
Prey? I don't know. Look it up at home, because I'm not going to.
I remember being in the theater for Requiem, and I remember even us being like, that wasn't very good. And I don't think anyone else was in the theater. I think it was just us.
I enjoyed Requiem, but again, these are movies that I haven't seen in a long time, but I remember AVP being more action-esque, or the way that I remember them in my head, but AVPR was more horror-esque. So I gravitated more toward AVPR, I think, even if
Requiem was more of a slasher movie, while
that could be why.
The original AVP was just, kind of just all-out kind of story, lore, sci-fi, and then horror elements were kind of baked into the story.
Yeah.
But they had some weird direction on that first one where they just used... If you go back and watch it now, you'll notice it, because I'll say it. They used a lot of slow motion. Like, in all the action scenes, it's always like...
like playing Max Payne.
The face hugger's like...
Speaking of the last movie that I want to mention... This is the year that the remake of Dawn of the Dead came out.
I definitely wasn't picking that one.
And that's one that I also enjoyed. Is that one of the divisive ones because it's got runners? Is that one of the things?
No, I think a lot more people like the 2004 version than the 1970s version. And me being me... that grew up with the 1970s version. It's just like really annoying that people talk about Dawn of the Dead, but whenever I talk about I start naming characters, they're like, who? And I'm like, oh, you're one of those people that...
Well, I can say I've seen both, and I do prefer the 2004 version.
Yeah, well, you like more newer movies, so that kind of makes sense.
I haven't seen it in a while, but I bought the Scream Factory version, and I'm gonna get around to it soon. But I get it, you're upset because the remake didn't have the guy getting his blood pressure checked in the middle of a zombie attack.
No sombrero anywhere in sight.
Such a stupid scene. That
But that's
forever,
what made it hilarious.
That forever in my head is the dumbest death in any horror movie I have ever seen. They're in a fight in the middle of a shopping mall, and like fighting for their lives. And there's those old pumps, like you put your arm through, and it.
We used to go to Walmart and do that all the time.
A guy looks at it, sits down, and decides he's gonna like stick his arm through and get his blood pressure checked, and they're being attacked by zombies.
Okay, but you're leaving the best part out, is that he does it twice. The first time, his buddy's like, "Hey, what the hell are you doing? We got somebody shooting at us up there." "Oh yeah, okay." And he goes up and he starts getting in the fight again. 5 minutes later, he's right back in there.
I would argue that if being a supervisor has taught me anything, it's that is probably realistic.
No, it's 100% realistic.
You would amongst all the chaos and horror, somebody would do that. They'd be called out, and then as soon as you leave your eye off them, they would probably go back and do it again.
They actually have a zombie biting his arm off, and I love it. Like, one of the scenes is it finally like it's done checking his blood pressure, and it just says like 0/0, and the arm is still just hanging there.
Again, it just leads me back to our tastes and preferences in serious horror as opposed to horror comedy. I just would prefer the movie to take itself more seriously. You like the jokes.
The 2004 version does have humor in it. It's not as much humor
but
as
not
the 1970s
in
version.
moments like that where you wouldn't typically have humor.
Yes, it does. Go back and watch it again.
Elaborate.
When
What
it gets
does
to the point,
the viewers think? What
Okay.
do the
And
viewers think? I think that this should be a comment.
Get in the Discord. Get in there. Let us know.
drag me over the coals for what I'm about to say, but here it is. Every time I watch the 2004 version of Dawn of the Dead, I like it less. And that's basically because I always see some new part that I didn't notice before that's just either bad writing, bad acting, or weird uses of CGI.
He's going in for confirmation bias.
This is the thing here. Whenever they get to the point in the movie where they're going to go over and rescue the gun store owner, and they're going to get him on our side, but he gets bit, and now they've got to go in there and try to save him, but he's already turned. Andy, oh no, I'm so sorry, brother. Ving Rhames points the shotgun at him, and when he pulls the trigger...
A gun sin. I knew it. It
No,
was
it's
all
not.
coming
It's
down
not.
the gun
It's
sin.
not on the gun. It's on the CGI head explosion where both of his eyes are clearly visible flying through the air.
Wow.
They both come out at the same trajectory angle going forward. Watch it again. Prove me wrong. Flying eyeballs. It's so damn goofy.
And with that, Mick...
Some makeup artist was so proud of that
CGI.
prop.
It was CGI.
Okay, I was going to say, and you are just ripping them
I'm not
apart.
even getting into the zombie baby.
All right, let's...
2005. Jonas, what do you have for us?
All right, let's get off this kick. I also went with a movie from a director that you brought up already.
Yay.
And maybe we have the same one. But Jesse has never seen this movie.
Then we don't.
So I went with Hostel.
Oh, okay.
I started to watch one of those at a friend's house when he was asleep, and it was like a sex scene. And his mom... So, like, he was sleeping on the bed, and I was sitting at his little computer desk. He's like, oh, you can watch this or whatever. I'm going to bed. It's like a sex scene, and his mom, like, opens the door to, like, check on us or something, and I'm just sitting at the computer, and there's just some sort of, like, lesbian sex scene going on. And she just, like, looks at me, and I just look at her, and I'm like, oh, shit. Like, I'm just like, it's not what it looks like.
Should have just, like, looked back and given her a wink. I mean, how old were you?
I don't remember. It was at Ben Harrison's house.
Oh, okay.
So I barely knew him. I mean, it was the only time I've ever been there, really.
I vaguely remember, but I want to say she was like one of the cool moms, in quotations. So she probably was just like, all right, whatever. Shut the door.
As long as you still had your pants on, I think you're probably okay.
Definitely.
But yeah,
it was through the zipper.
The film Hostel is a really good one, in my opinion, for a couple of reasons. It took a lot of chances. People went out of their way to badmouth this film when it came out, saying that it was the most hyper-violent movie to come out in decades.
And it was.
Completely untrue. There is violence and gore in the movie, but I just think it was the subject matter that really got people to hate this movie, to think that people were buying people to kill them.
That's probably true.
But,
it's a twisted thought.
And it is, but really, Saw came out a couple of years before this, and Saw, the original one, is way worse on the violence and gore than Hostel was.
But here is the reason I've never watched Hostel and my thoughts on it. I always felt like, yeah, Saw was messed up and it had gore and it was gross. But the reason that I watched Saw and not Hostel was because, to me, from the premise, Saw had more going for it. At least the original had more going for it than just gore and something gross. It also had
old people,
a mysterious, twisty-turny narrative that you were there for. Whereas Hostel, it seemed like there wasn't much to it other than the gross gore, and that's kind of what you were there for.
Well, it's funny because they actually don't even get to the kills and violence and gore until, like, the third act of the movie. Like, it is almost the end of the movie before you really start seeing anything.
And that's how Wolf Creek was.
It's build up, build up, build up. But then that payoff in that last 20 minutes or so of the movie, I could see people walking out of the theater over some of the stuff that went on.
Yeah.
But, me being jaded, I'm just like, I've seen chainsaws and eye gouging and things like this before. This is no big deal. I liked it. It was the only good one in the series, in my opinion. The second one, I mean, and this is like another one of those spoiler-ish things, but I just hate it when you start off the sequel by killing off the one person
I know
that survives the first movie. It's one of those sins in a movie. It's just unforgivable.
We talked about it, and Friday the 13th started doing that crap, and it never stopped.
Hostel's the only one in the Travel trilogy that I have not seen.
You haven't watched it either. Wow. I guess
I'm
alone in this one.
Eli Roth's films.
Yeah. Eli Roth's Travel trilogy. It goes Cabin Fever, Hostel, Green Inferno.
Okay.
I think Green Inferno is not a bad one either.
And what did you have, Justin?
We are on 2005.
Yep.
So, I had probably what you have.
Probably not.
Unless I missed something. I put Cry Wolf.
I didn't have Cry Wolf. That's one of my... A lot of people, that's another movie that I would try and get people to watch with me. And everyone acted like I was putting them through some sort of torture. I loved that film.
You can't convince me, Owen, if you can't convince
yourself.
I actually haven't watched this one.
It was...
Oh, wow. So no spoilers then for you.
Well, it was a 2005 horror film. And
you're like, so we can spoil it from him. He said 15, and
I'm not going to spoil a bunch
kidding.
of stuff, but it was like an early internet kind of film, and it basically was around kids lying or spinning tales, and then some of them might become reality, and then like who's telling the truth and who's not.
For being 2005, you could definitely watch it and think it was a very late 90s film. Like, it definitely fits that profile of just the environment that it puts off is very, like, urban legends-esque.
Yeah, slashery, kind of a murder mystery whodunit, but with it tries to be edgy, and I think that's where some of the cringe comes. Like, now it might not hold up as well, but
yeah,
it was a fun movie.
I haven't watched it was because every time I see like the tile or like the front cover of it come up on like a streaming service or I see it online somewhere, it just looks really generic to me. It's just guy in a ski mask with a hunting knife.
It's really not, though.
The killer wears like a hunting mask and has the knife. Yeah, the outfit isn't very isn't particularly flashy or anything, but it's not really about that as much. It had Jared Padalecki in it. That might have been his first role. I don't know.
I didn't even realize that.
He plays Tom, the roommate. He's like, so I met my roommate, Tom.
I just beat off.
Yeah,
after he shakes his hand.
Their first meeting, he shakes
That's
his
just
hand.
like unlocking more memories, because we used to say that anytime we shook someone's hand, I just beat off.
Yeah, and the lead Owen, he wasn't in a lot, but he did pop up on occasion. He was in like Sorority Row and Once Upon a Time and stuff like that.
For some reason, I'm just picturing Scotty.
It's not. He looks a lot like him.
Kind of like him. So then, I went with Cry Wolf, and then in parentheses, I had Amityville Horror.
Well, the remake.
That movie is the first movie, to my recollection, that ever made me jump. And it was the stupidest thing. And we were watching it on Josh's bed, and when they shut the mirror, it made me jump.
Is it a mirror shut? Because there's a scene where the kid gets up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, and there is a mirror shot.
They
where
might be there,
mirror shot,
and then maybe bend down. It's a trope that's been done a million times.
It's a creature, like a ghost that's behind him, but it's like quivering, and it's like...
It was just the
like
jump
creepy.
scare, and it was, like I said, it was the first time that I feel like a movie's ever actually made me jump. Because even if something's kind of scary, like, I'm not the type to jump. Like, I don't jump, you know what I mean? But that, when I remember, just catching me off guard, and so I was like, I gotta honorable mention it. I mean, if it made me jump.
It's making me think of the American Werewolf in London scene with the mirror scene where he's in the bathroom, closes it, and he sees his dead friend behind him.
It's in a million movies now.
Yeah,
and every movie, even modern horror movies now, they always go to a mirror, and it's always just like, oh, whatever. But
a lot of times they'll do the fake out now, playing off the trope. But yeah,
just have nothing happen. But then
nothing's there.
Halloween 2, the Rob Zombie one, did that. And then as soon as she opened the bathroom door, then he was there. It was just like the fake out. Okay, now it's real.
Jonas, we don't talk about Rob Zombies.
Yeah, you're right.
Halloween 2. So my film was not mentioned yet, surprisingly. My 2005 film was The Descent.
That was a quality one. The
Descent, Cave Divers. It's a scary enough thing in itself. Claustrophobia, the dark.
Absolutely.
And they get lost in there, so that's stressful. And then also there's humanoid goblin-esque creatures living in the caves that start killing them. So that's it's a really dark, creepy film. It works a lot for
and you like that more than Cry Wolf.
Currently, yes.
It's just kind of wild to think about, because I never hear you talk about The Descent, but I've known that
I've known that you like Cry Wolf.
About The Descent? We've talked about The Descent a few times, and I'm just even hearing it right now, I'm just getting an idea that maybe the entire movie, the way you described it, cave divers, and it's dark and creepy in there, and there's creatures running around. I'm thinking maybe this was written by a gay man.
Oh, goodness gracious!
And the cave is representing, like, spelunking is a euphemism for going down on a woman. So maybe the cave diver thing, there's things in there, I don't know. That's scary.
Let me elaborate. That's the first thing you thought of.
Yes.
He's not projecting at all.
Well, The Descent is just, like I said, I like straightforward, dark, scary horror movies. And this delivers. It's got really tragic, messed up stuff happening even before the cave begins, just in the opening. So, you're in for a movie that's going to deliver. It has an alternate ending in America.
Yeah.
That is not good.
That seems to be a trend with everything. They alter it for Americans.
And they made a sequel that also is not good, that plays off of that alternate ending. So, just to be clear, the alternate ending and the sequels are not real. The real ending is the original ending. So, we'll leave it at that.
I honestly couldn't get through the sequel.
Yeah.
I noped out about 20 minutes in, and I'm like, this is getting dumb.
I don't blame you. So, some of the other movies that came out that year, Saw 2 came out that year, continuing the franchise. Boogeyman was another one that I was really into when we were in school and younger. Again, I couldn't pick that because I haven't seen it in so long.
Who starred in Boogeyman?
It's the guy from Sorority Boys, one of the three main guys.
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
I
not
think
Michael
that's
Rosenbaum and not the guy from Employee of the
not
Month.
your favorite guy, huh?
It was the main guy.
Yeah, and it had Sam Raimi's name on it. I don't think he directed it. I think he like produced it or something, and he's a big name, so they slapped it on the cover. Again, I can't say a lot about it because it's been so long, and I could be falsely remembering.
His name is Barry Watson.
Movie. Yeah.
In case anybody was curious, it was Barry Watson.
The Cave was another one that came out that year, and it's similar to The Descent, but this is a monster flick, whereas The Descent is so much more than that. It's psychological, and
I hate to say it too, but I really did enjoy The Cave a little bit more so than the Descent. Just because The Cave's monsters were such a good design. I love those things.
The Cave is good. I can say that I have watched that one recently. So that one does hold up. And you know who's in it is Lena Headey, who plays Cersei Lannister in Game of Thrones.
It's so weird that I can't recognize her. Like certain characters like that, unless they're like in their costumes from like the show from like, oh yeah, it's that person.
And Jin from Lost is in it. And they're both prominent characters that are in most of the movie. Yeah, that one holds up pretty well. The creatures are really intimidating. House of Wax came out that year. The remake, which is another divisive remake.
My favorite Paris Hilton movie.
Also had Jared Padalecki in it.
Over a Night in Paris?
Okay, you got it.
It's the only other one I know.
Just that it reminds me of that scene in Supernatural where Paris Hilton's in it. It's like a monster that's taking on a celebrity form for influence to like lure in virgins or something. And yeah, we don't need to get into that. But Dean, they have like a little meta joke where Dean's like, I haven't even seen House of Wax because she's in it, and Jared just kind of does a Jim from The Office like because he's in it.
Yeah.
So I like House of Wax. They used My Chemical Romance Helena for the credits music, which you didn't hear your music represented a lot at all, let alone in movies. So that was kind of cool.
You just assumed that everybody else was emo?
No.
You said you didn't hear your music.
Yeah, isn't like oh, so you heard a lot of your music represented in film, is what you're saying.
Well, considering we both went to Warped Tour and grew up with the same music, I'm just somebody has to say it.
Hasn't it been like 15 years since that album came out?
It's been a long time. They just started touring again.
Yeah.
Three cheers.
Tickets are expensive still. They're not as expensive as it was when they first announced their concert. That was like $400 to buy a ticket from scalpers. Now it's down to like $100, but I'm still waiting. But I still enjoy House of Wax. Leanna hates it and refuses to watch it because the finger cutting scene. Yeah. There's a girl trying to escape and she puts her finger through a grate to get out, and the guy above it is covering for himself, and he like snips the point of her finger right off. It's really messed up.
Classy.
It says something about the movie that people are like, no, I'm not watching that. It's pretty because
I would have thought it was the peeling the wax off and the skin coming off.
Oh yeah, it was an effective movie.
I only recently watched that one for the first time.
Yeah,
and it was pretty good. It was not worth the hate that I heard about it. It was a decent movie.
We on to 2006?
06. Oh no.
Oh no. What do you got, Jonas?
I'm just not even gonna have any pretense on this one. Hills Have Eyes remake.
Oh, okay.
And you know, I was really love-hate with this movie when it first came out. It's a decent remake, but it is extremely heavy on the gore. Like, they just must have told, like, the director, like, you know what? Just go all out. Whatever you want to do, head explosions, you know, weird-ass people in rocking chairs with elephantitis, you know, anything you want to make. Just just go crazy.
Straight up like Hatchet gore, where they just take a bucket and splash red all over trees.
It was
and
more
whatnot.
like
At times,
shotgun to the face and we don't cut away gore.
yeah. That one caught me off guard at the beginning of the movie, and I'm just like, whoa, okay, this is what we're in for. Strap in. I mean, to take a Wes Craven property, and, you know, he's never been, like, huge on gore in his movies. But then to have the remake come out and just, like, that's how it started.
How tame is the original?
Oh,
Or
it
is
has bits and pieces that are, like, chopped off of people. No. It has just, you know, certain parts where it's definitely a rated R movie, but it's more for, like, menacing, just like, you can't get away from us, we're gonna torment you and your family. And I believe a dog is killed on screen. So
I've never seen either, and I didn't realize that was Wes Craven, which brings me
Not
to my
the
next
remake.
point.
the original, yeah.
Did you watch the original, Jesse?
No.
And you're a huge Wes Craven fan, but you've never watched the original? I didn't even know he did that. I've never heard that brought up ever. It's always just been Scream and Nightmare on Elm Street.
If you look through his filmography, he does have quite a few movies that do not get enough praise from people.
I wouldn't go out on a limb to say that I'm a huge Wes Craven fan. I'm a huge Scream fan, and I love Nightmare on Elm Street. So there's a lot of Wes Craven films I haven't seen. I haven't seen The People Under the Stairs yet. Obviously, I just said I hadn't seen Hills Have Eyes.
Serpent in the Rainbow.
I haven't seen it. So, like, I don't go out of the way to be like, I'm a huge Wes Craven fan, because I've only seen his most popular stuff.
But you haven't hated any of his work.
No, but
Sounds like you just haven't watched it.
I hear Shocker's pretty bad.
Which is
You
weird,
don't
though.
need to watch Shocker.
But you understand why it's strange,
Oh.
though. If you liked everything you have seen, it's like, and you
Also-
like horror, why wouldn't you pursue his other works?
Also, though, having said that, I really didn't care for My Soul to Take, which was one of his films.
I don't think I'd watch that one.
We'll get to that later. But
Is that Justin's looking at his list like, I gotta cross that one off now?
I was just looking to see where it's at.
is that all you had on Hills Have
Yeah,
Eyes?
I won't take up too much time on that. It's a decent movie. It's worth a watch if you guys haven't seen it.
You can take as much time on it. Me and Jesse have the same one in the next one.
I will say that, so I might have told this story already, but I got, at post-prom, junior or senior year, I don't remember which one, I won a package that had some movies in it, and candy and stuff. And one of the movies was The Hills Have Eyes, the unrated cut. And I hadn't seen it yet, but the trailers looked good when it came out, and I wanted to see it. And I remember the creepy little girl sitting in front of the TV or sitting on the floor or something and turns around and she's like mutated. And I wanted to see it, so we watched it. I watched it in my older brother's room with him and my stepbrother, and I remember being traumatized by this movie. And I'm a junior or senior in high school at this point, so like it really caught me off guard that it was too much for me, like even more than the other horror movies I like. I remember the shotgun to the face and people burning alive and it not straying away from anything. And there's a rape, right?
Yeah.
There's like a graphic rape by a mutant. So I remember a container being delivered that has a severed ear in it.
Yep.
So I never went back to the movie, and I don't know how much of it is in my head that it's this awful movie, or if it would still be pretty traumatic.
It is funny how that works with movies like that. You swear like, oh, it's so bad, and then you go back and watch it, and you're like, man, my mind just went off on its own with this one, and just thought that it was so much worse than what it was. I remember having that with some movies, specifically horror movies, thinking like, oh, I don't know if I can get through this one again. And then it's not as bad as you thought it was.
Yeah.
But then I've had the opposite happen before, like, holy crap, why did I not remember that was in this movie?
And I kind of wonder where that one lies for me.
It makes sense that you didn't like it and the fact that I haven't seen it, because typically if you did like something, I watched it. There was a couple movies growing up where you were like, I don't want you to watch this, and I don't remember what they were. But
one was See No Evil, because it was that Kane horror movie, and he would pluck his victim's eyeballs out, and I thought that it was too much for my younger brother to watch. It was a bit much for me. I remember that being
all the other ones were fine.
And then Josh was like, "No, come in. He can watch it. It's cool." And then he watched it.
I did.
Yeah,
I repressed it.
I didn't watch it just because that was the start of the WWF films. And Oculus, I think, was the first one.
Was Oculus one?
Yeah.
That's a Mike Flanagan one.
But that's a WWE or WWF production.
Huh.
And that's why I haven't watched them. Anytime I see their logo on a movie, I'm just like, ugh. I don't want to watch that.
They ruined Leprechaun.
And See No Evil wasn't bad.
They did.
Which one did they make?
WWE or F or whatever the hell they are now. The wrestler people bought the rights to Leprechaun, and they made Leprechaun Origins, which was a fucking shit show.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like they made Leprechaun in space or something like that.
No. Now you're just trolling me.
Well, they're all bad, so you can't tell which one.
Well, they changed him. It wasn't even like a leprechaun. It was like a creature, and it was this whole thing.
Yeah, I didn't watch that one yet.
But yeah. So where were we?
2006.
Yeah, 2006.
Jonas said, "I think these ones we'll just fly through them really fast."
And we won't. But go ahead. What do you?
So I'm going out on a limb. I got 2 movies written down here. I mean, I picked one, but you could have either of them. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I've been kind of wrong on the second half. On this part 2, I've been kind of wrong. Jesse's been kind of surprising me by picking ones that making me feel like I don't know him quite as well. So I went with Behind the Mask, Rise of Leslie Vernon, and I also had in my, I just look over and Jonas is just in a hue of smoke. It's just a vape pen, but I just look over and he's just clouded looking at me.
It could be worse.
My honorable mention was Final Destination 3. I chose to go with Rise of Leslie Vernon. Did you go with Final Destination 3?
How insulting would it have been if I wore this shirt?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even... Okay.
And I didn't pick it. I'm wearing my Behind the Mask, the Rise of Leslie Vernon shirt.
Shows my situational awareness right now. It's late.
I went Behind the Mask. It's such a good film.
Best scene in the entire movie. He's like, then there's that thing you got to do where when they're not looking, you got to run your ass off, and then you got to look like you're walking when they look at you.
You still got to keep up on them.
And there's so much cardio.
The greatest thing about that movie is the whole first. It's almost like 2 movies because the whole first half is like a I don't want to say a mockumentary or whatever they call it, but it's like
a full 3/4 of the movie.
Yeah, and then like at the end, it's almost like you could view it as a whole different director and everything, and then there's like a whole separate movie at the end.
It becomes a stylized horror film.
It's so good.
Well, they changed like the cameras and the lighting and everything, like the film stock even. But it does happen 1 or 2 other times throughout the movie. I think towards the beginning, whenever he's talking about messing with the waitress and like moving the brick and stuff, it switches to like instead of like a found footage like handy cam kind of documentary style, it switches to like a movie style.
Yeah.
And then it switches back again, and somebody's like, "Oh, did you see that? I totally got her. Oh, she's really freaked out now."
I want to say the film opens with that normal film style, that scene playing out.
Yeah.
Like it's a movie. And then later you see the behind the scenes, what actually happened with them there. So yeah, it's a really clever movie that I imagine was a pretty low budget movie and went under a lot of people's radar, but it's definitely...
You met the actor, right? And didn't he have a shout out for the Knife Shift?
The very first episode, there's a promo from Mr. Nathan Basil.
And he played Leslie Vernon. And yeah, the first ever podcast that we did was in Jonas's car on our way home from Astronomicon 3.
Yep.
And yeah, that's why I went there, was to meet him. And that was a good show. You can check out the podcast if you're interested, but I will say that the quality's a lot lower in that one than any of our other podcasts because it's the first one and we didn't have the same equipment.
Yeah, we just literally had a tape recorder that we had brought with us, and it's the same one that I got Nathan Basil and Alex Vincent from Child's Play, who played Andy. We got both of them just... asked them, and they were really nice about it. We're like, hey, can we just get you guys to just do like a 5-second little blurb for our podcast? And he's like, oh, hell yeah, man, let's do this.
Yeah, what's it called? All right.
And now that was like before we even had a podcast. We just decided, you know what? Let's do this.
Yeah.
We just decided to go for it. And after we got them to both do it, we're like,
now we have to.
We actually have to do this now.
We cannot let this go to waste. Yeah, that was great. Was there anything else on Behind the Mask?
I think I said enough about Behind the Mask. Just Final Destination 3 was really good too that year. Like, shouldn't be undercut. I know it's not as good as, probably even the first or second, but, Frankie Cheeks is old school. Still quotable.
I wouldn't say that it's not as good, more so than it starts to take on a different tone at 3. Because it starts to become a little goofier. Not that you can't still take it seriously, but it has a lot more comedic depths and comedic moments.
Was that the
Tanning
one with
bed.
the weight bench?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I agree then.
Yeah, I can't remember what he's yelling. He's just like, it's what I do. I just win. And the death comes. So there's a lot of stuff like that. But at the same time, it rides the line pretty well. Mary Elizabeth Winstead's the lead, and she still brings that traumatized character to the screen, and you feel it. Whereas the fourth one's just goofy and by far the worst in the franchise. But 3 is still creative, and it's still fun. I guess that's the best way to put it. 3's a lot more fun, if that makes sense.
So what else came out this year?
I'm not sure if any of you've seen it. There's a Norwegian, I could be wrong, it's a Norwegian film that I got on disc years back somehow. It's called Cold Prey, and it's a bunch of snowboarders get caught in an avalanche or something, and one of them gets injured, so they take the nearest shelter, and it's like a slasher film. There's somebody else out there and starts trying to kill him, and I remember it being really brutal and good. The injured person, like, there's bones sticking out of his leg. It's not like, he's injured. And the stakes are high. That one was pretty good. The Covenant was kind of popular here. That was basically The Craft, but with all males. And
I never watched that one.
It had, what's his name? Taylor Kitsch, or however you say it, that played Gambit in Wolverine Origins.
I like The Covenant. I didn't realize that came out. Would you really put that as a horror?
Sebastian Stan's in it. It's got horror elements. It might not be strict horror, but I remember there's creepy spider stuff, and it's a darker film. Hatchet came out that year.
Victor
Crowley, Hatchet. I remember enjoying Hatchet, the first one anyway. I don't know if I still would. It might be one of those films that it was a one and done, but I had a good time with it.
I'm just looking through IMDb right now, and I just see that they did make another movie called The Coven, which came out in 2015, and it looks like it might be related.
Huh. Really? If so, I might have to look into it. I'm curious.
I wouldn't, because it's only a 2.3 out of 10.
Okay, well, never mind. That could be that weird sequel to The Craft that they made.
What do you mean, like the newest one?
Yeah.
No, that just came out in like 2020.
Oh, okay. Did you look up the cover for Cold Prey, Justin?
Yeah, it didn't look familiar to me at all.
Okay. See No Evil did come out that year. I know we briefly just talked about it, but that's one that I still enjoy. Your characters are all convicts that are working toward getting their sentences cut short by doing community service, but they're doing community service in a hotel that burnt down. It caught fire. It didn't burn down, but people aren't staying there anymore, so they're cleaning it up, but they don't know that the killer is living in this hotel and living behind the walls and stuff. It's like a maze type hotel situation, and it's got some strong Friday the 13th elements in it. That one is actually pretty decent. Silent Hill was that year. That's a big one. Snakes on a Plane was that year.
Oh god.
And another one that was almost my pick. I won't say almost my pick. It wasn't gonna beat this movie, But another film I really love was Stay Alive. That was this year.
Oh, wow.
Stay Alive's another one I have a poster of that's a B horror movie that not a lot of people have seen.
Frankie Muniz.
If you watch it, you have to watch the, I don't know if it's unrated, but like the unrated cut, because that was one that they filmed it, the unrated cut, and then they had to cut it down to PG-13 to make it fit theaters, and the PG-13 version's terrible. So just watch the unrated cut. Stay Alive's great. It's got what's his name from Westworld and It's Always Sunny.
Yeah.
Is in it. He plays the young man in black in Westworld. He's great in it. So that's 2006 for me.
I just had to look up Stay Alive because I never watched that one.
You didn't mention that Milo was in it.
Oh yeah, and I had him sign my poster. He plays Loomis in the opening, and the poster is the controller hanging, and it's like the shackles, like somebody's hanging, like a torture victim is hanging from shackles, but they're like holding on to the controller. It plays off the Elizabeth Bathory story, the girl that bathed in blood to stay young, and it's like this cursed. If you think paranormal movies and things, there's always cursed objects. Well, the cursed object is like a fan-made video game.
I just love how the controller is so obviously a Mad Catz, just
like a generic
it's
controller.
So generic, yeah. It could be for any system.
That's a fun watch, though. I think at some point the only reason we haven't is because they haven't made a Blu-ray of it.
Jimmy Simpson is the actor that you were talking about, and then Sophie Bush, who I don't know why, because her voice is different. I think she has a super sexy voice. I'm not gonna lie.
Is she the one that always sounds like a smoker?
It's not. It's rasp, but it's not like
Yes,
rough.
it
It's
is.
not rough.
She's
I don't know. There's something about it.
Okay.
And for anybody who doesn't know who the hell that is, she's like the chick from One Tree Hill.
Okay, yeah. And
People will know
She's
that.
also in the Hitcher remake.
I don't know what that is.
I hate you.
Let's move on to 2007, unless you have anything else.
I don't have anything else. Why are you looking at me like that?
You like swapping nudes over there?
No, what are you... Whoa. Goodness gracious.
So
Yeah, don't be throwing shade like that. I wasn't even doing it.
my
I can't.
2007 pick is sharing nudes. No, it's
Now I have
Sure.
to leave it in.
Oh, God.
I won't leave it in.
my 2007 pick
Or will I?
is 30 Days of Night.
30 Days a Night. That's a popular one that I haven't actually sat through the whole thing.
That surprises me too.
I was sick when I tried to watch it and I passed out, and I haven't gotten back to it.
That's one where you kind of want to wait until winter to watch it, because then it'll put you in the right headspace for what's going on in the movie. So to sum it up really easily, there's a small town in Alaska where for, I think it's like 30 days, somewhere around.
Is it? They should.
For 30 days, there's no sun. I've killed Jesse
Oh my
with
god.
my horrible joke. So, the premise is vampires would just have a field day with no sun for 30 days, right? Well, there you go. It was a great premise. Now we have 30 days where the sun never comes up and vampires are just going to run amok.
The vampires felt like Rollin in shipping and receiving.
Here's how long has
Free
it
reign.
been? How long's it been since I've said something controversial? I'm gonna throw this out there. I'm sick of the classic monsters. They just don't do it for me. All right,
Whoa.
vampires, zombies,
Next you're going to be
Best-
saying mummies aren't scary.
The best classical...
mummies.
Oh, no.
Oh,
The best classical monster, though, Invisible Man.
That's a hell of a stretch. Really?
Wouldn't you want to be the Invisible Man?
Okay, Kevin Bacon, Invisible Man. Are we looking
any
at
of
trying
them.
to get some nipple action
we
going
getting
on?
rapey over there. Come on now.
I can't think of an Invisible Man movie that did not devolve into
Rape.
something like that. Like even the newest one.
Don't spoil it.
What was the newest one called? Was it just...
I haven't seen it yet, but is it just Invisible Man?
I can't remember. It was that much of like a forgettable kind of movie, but it was just okay. It was serviceable for what it was. It was better than Hollow Man, but that's not saying a whole lot.
Excuse me?
I liked Hollow Man when I watched it.
I enjoy Hollow Man.
Go back to it again. You might feel differently. Well, you might not, but some of us find it to be a little bit of a challenging watch now.
I'm a Kevin Bacon fan.
I rewatched R.I.P.D. recently.
Well, you gotta watch something that's good. I don't want to devolve away from horror movies and talk about series because that would be a whole separate thing, but The Following.
Oh, The Following is good. And it didn't overstay its welcome. It did 3 seasons.
So yeah, 30 Days of White. 30 Days of White.
30 Days of White.
Oh my
I can't
God.
tell if you're devolving back into porn territory or what with this, but...
Okay, so yes, 30 Days of Night with Josh Hartnett. Was that his name?
Yeah.
It's a good movie. It's
What are we talking about?
talking about that good old 30 Days of Night with the
Where he has the
vampires
dream and
aren't scary.
he's flying over the sea of titties.
Justin has... Let me clarify it.
Didn't he
right?
jokingly say 30 Days and Nights or something?
Let me clarify. Justin has confused the movie 30 Days of Night with the film 30 Days and 30 Nights, who ironically
I thought he was
stars-
making a joke
which
about
ironically
Josh Hartnett.
stars the same actor.
That is kind of
I
funny.
thought you were joking.
No.
No, it's a real movie. That you haven't seen 30 Days of Night?
He talked about it like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah,
Were you not listening?
I was listening.
Justin, what's your 2007 film?
2007.
Do we have the same movie?
Yes, of course we do.
There's
Trick or
a-
Treat.
We do, but there's a lot of good
Okay,
ones.
so Trick or Treat.
It's the best Halloween movie.
It's such a
there is.
Halloween movie. Even though Halloween came out in 2007, Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Well,
Rob Zombie's Halloween was creepy. That kid beating that other kid with a stick, that was a little too real.
yeah, there's
But-
a lot to be said about that.
But Trick or Treat, like he said, is such a good Halloween movie because it's like little mini episodes that all come together, and you get your little fill of like, I don't know, like campfire stories, you know?
yeah, and they all connect, so they're all worth it in the end. And
Some of them.
Anthology movies need to do that more often, where they all have a wraparound,
yeah,
like some pretense to why they're telling all these stories. Very few of them wrap them all together in the wraparound story.
Very few of them rap at the end, is what he wants. He wants them
I
to
want
do.
another rap song at the end of my horror movie.
VHS has a really hard time with coming up with decent wraparound stories.
Yeah.
So to see,
You know what one of the best ones was? Tales from the Dark Side. The kid reading tales out of the book while the woman is trying to get him into the oven to cook him.
and I haven't seen that one, but I remember
either.
us talking about it.
Another movie that came out in 2007 was Dead Silence. Did you know that? You look puzzled.
It's the ventriloquist dummy
Yeah.
one.
That
Yeah,
was a good
Dead
one.
Silence.
That's
I
a good one.
refuse to watch it.
I enjoyed that.
You watch Reanimator 5000,
Yeah.
the 5th film series in the Reanimation, and you're like, I refuse to watch a movie about ventriloquy. Which, if you grew up on Goosebumps, the Night of the Living Dummy was always the best ones.
I disagree, but that's just my opinion.
Slappy.
I didn't read that one either. I think what was it like the
Jonas was reading porno magazines when those came out. He
I
was
was
like,
reading Stephen King books when I was like 12. So before that, it was like I read maybe 2 Goosebumps books. I think one of them was like about an amusement park or something. I don't really remember.
Jesse's favorite was always the Say Cheese and Die.
Yeah, the Goosebumps book?
Yeah.
It was. And I remember going back to it at some point and realizing that how basic Goosebumps books actually
Well, they're
were.
for kids.
Yeah, when you're a kid and you read it, it's like a full detailed book to you because your imagination does.
He would write those books in like, I don't know. I can't remember if it said like an hour or like 15, 20 minutes. He would like come up with an idea. He had to write so many like a week. And so he would just like mass produce them. Just
That's
I
cool.
believe it. Yeah.
But I got us kind of off the hinges here. But yeah, that was my pick, Trick or Treat, and then my honorable mentions were Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween to be specific, and Dead Silence.
Okay. Yeah, Trick or Treat is Sam in himself, the mysterious little creature, has become such an icon. And for someone to only have been in one movie and to have become that, that's impressive.
But they can't get the same actor back to play him again
Why?
because now he's a grown-up.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's going to be at a convention in September, so we might be able to meet him.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Some of the other films that came out that year were really good. Two off the bat were 1408 and The Mist. Both came out that year.
I remember this was a tough year for me to pick one.
Yeah, I personally enjoy 1408 more. I'm just a John Cusack fan, and The Hotel is so done so well. The Mist ending though is so iconic, and I know we've talked about that on the channel and The Mist in general. Those are both really good, solid horror flicks. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, the Mist stays with you. If you haven't watched that one before, highly recommended. But you gotta be in the right headspace to watch that movie. Go in when you're feeling good about life. Don't if you're on like day 5 of like a depression, anxiety bender, do not watch this movie. I don't think it's gonna help things any for you. You wanna go in happy on this one because you're not gonna be by the time it ends.
They're both Stephen King's short stories.
Right.
So I have gotten the collections these stories are actually in, and I've been meaning to go back through them. But I want to say that The Mist is longer.
Yeah, it's one of the longer ones in the book, but it has a non-ending. And
Yeah.
that's why Stephen King was quoted as saying that Frank Darabont wrote the ending that he wishes he would have come up with.
Yeah, it's a good ending.
And I'll just say this about it too. One of the newer collector's editions that came out for The Mist, it's probably been like more like at least a decade ago or something since this one came out, but it actually came out with a second disc that was like black and white.
Oh,
like
yeah.
the same way that Logan did years later.
Yeah.
I think The Mist was the one that did this, and they were talking about like, yeah, it makes it feel like an old 1950s monster movie.
That's cool, yeah. I've been looking for a decent Blu-ray copy on eBay, but they're expensive, so
Yeah, same.
someday. Vacancy came out that year, the one in the motel, the weird snuff film, people running the motel.
I feel like I remember liking Vacancy, but I can't remember anything about it.
Was
That-
that one
that's-
with Luke Wilson?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Disturbia came out that year. That was big for us.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So,
what was
Shia
that
LaBeouf.
song everybody was always singing?
No, 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 no. No, 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 no,
Was that what it was?
no, 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 no.
No, I think it was Disturbia had a System of a Down song.
No,
It
that
does.
definitely wasn't it.
It does have that.
But I mean, there was something that everyone was always doing.
Yeah, that was the one that I did.
But of course, Disturbia is just a modern retelling of Rear Window, just
Yeah.
with a teenager instead
For
of
a
a
younger
guy.
audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it worked.
It was solid.
We liked
film.
it. I
They've
bet that one.
repurposed it a couple times with different movies for like
Yeah.
the same kind of thing.
I bet that one holds up with the cast it had.
Oh yeah.
There's a couple non-English horror films that came out this year. We have Wreck and The Orphanage.
The Orphanage or The Orphan?
The Orphanage.
I was like shoving an entire fruit by the foot in my mouth.
Yo, I'm really glad that you got me to watch The Orphanage, even though it was a heck of a downer.
It's such a sad movie. I've forgotten how sad it was when we put it.
It was so funny. That was kind of the humorous part about it, because like we're 3/4 of the way into this movie, and I remember you looking over like, I'm kind of sorry that I put this on.
I want to say that Leanna and Jessica were crying.
Yeah,
and it
they
was
were.
like,
That's a bit dramatic.
it's a sad movie.
If you haven't seen it, man, it's about dead kids. So
Yeah.
there's no real way to put like a silver lining on that one.
It's a Spanish film, so there's subtitles.
I'd be crying
it's a
too if I had to
Spanish
sit
film,
through an entire film with subtitles.
Subs over dubs, man.
Yeah,
I know this
with it.
guy's like, "Huh?"
And also, I saved this for last because I know we talked about it briefly, but I figured there would be a little conversation around Rob Zombie's Halloween. You were talking about it earlier, and I wanted to say something, but I figured I'd wait till the end. That is a very controversial remake in the sense that it completely flips the point of the original on its head. Part of the point of the original was that it was a normal kid that had a normal upbringing, and for no reason he just decided to stab his sister to death. And so a big point of the original Halloween is what causes seemingly normal people to do horrific things like this sometimes. And whereas you watch the Rob Zombie one, which works as its own film, but the Rob Zombie one, you watch it and you're like, oh, well, of course he's a serial killer.
Yeah.
He had a terrible upbringing and his family members killed themselves or whatever. And so, of course, he murdered his abusive stepdad. And it was very on the nose of like, yep, okay, I can see why this kid became a serial killer. But it's still an entertaining movie in itself. And one could argue, what's the point in remaking a film if you're going to show the same film? So why not do your own thing with it?
Yeah, if you are going to remake a movie, I would say go the Rob Zombie route. Or even go the Evil Dead route, where you take it in kind of a different direction and do a lot of things that people weren't expecting, myself included when I watched that one. But with the Halloween one, I thought it was good for what it was. If we could live in a world where there were no sequels to it, I would have preferred that, because the less said about Rob Zombie's follow-up with Halloween 2, the better.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too.
That one just...
I think Rob Zombie agreed too.
Yeah. After his interview on Joe Rogan, where he was talking about some of these movies, it made so much more sense. Where he was just like, I didn't even know how to make any movies. They threw me a bag of money and just said, go make a movie. So I just did.
I'm really not a fan of Rob Zombie's films.
His music's okay.
The one exception is his original remake of Halloween, for me.
I actually liked the Devil's Rejects and the Three from Hell. I'm not a big fan of House of a Thousand Corpses. I just thought it was too much shot like a music video. It gets annoying after a little while. That's my own take. Don't kill me in the comments for this one, but
I thought House of a Thousand Corpses was good, and then I thought that Devil's Rejects I hated.
Yeah.
And then
Tutti Frutti.
I did like goodness, what one was it? Was it 31? Is that what it's called?
Oh God, I hated that one.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to get Jesse to watch it, and he refuses.
So bad.
What do you mean?
It's so bad.
I'm just not a big fan of his movies, so you're going to have a hard time getting me to watch his movies. And I watched House of a Thousand Corpses, and I hated it. So I'm naturally not going to progress into the sequel films if I hated the original. So maybe I would have come around on Devil's Rejects, but I doubt it. I really doubt it.
You're talking to a guy who didn't like marijuana, and you're trying to get him to try heroin. Like, he's just not going to go that far.
Are we ready for 2009 then? Or 2008, sorry. I'm
yes.
jumping the shark.
We're going to 2008, and there is no way in hell that you two have the same one that I do.
Okay.
No way.
So the usual.
This movie is one of the weirdest movies I have ever seen.
That's saying something.
And it is.
And it's not Society.
No. That came out quite a while before this, but this one has an interesting name that is just the name of the town where it's happening. But it's really hard to describe what this movie is about. The movie is called Pontypool.
It's a porno.
It's totally not. Okay. It's a story about a local radio DJ doing his morning routine show when suddenly mass psychosis starts to happen.
You looked up the picture. That's what that burst of laughter was.
It's like...
So basically what's happening is words are triggering people to go insane.
It sounds like you're describing the internet.
Kinda. Yeah, that's it. But
he's talking about Twitter, the horror movie.
They can't figure out what words are doing it, and they're trying to figure out like how it's infecting people. But they don't figure out the words thing until about halfway through the movie. So slight spoiler there. But once they start to figure it out, they're like, how can we stop this from happening? It starts happening to people right next to him, and he has to like try and talk them down to not go insane.
It sounds very Spiral-esque.
Yeah.
With the contagious spirals taking over the city.
It is a little bit like that. But the ending is so just batshit crazy. It just goes all the way into left field by the end of it, and you're just left scratching your head like, I don't know what happened, but it was kind of worth watching because I'm never going to see another movie like this. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on it.
All right, Justin.
I mean, that was intense, though. So, I didn't even have any honorable mentions. I just have one movie that I picked. Pathology. With Milo again. Such a good movie.
I will say that did not even come up on my list. So I didn't love consider Pathology.
It. When I made my list, I had 2 pieces of paper and then the internet. So I'd write down, like I would look at a list or lists that I could find and try to write down. But then on the other list, as I was thinking of random horror movies that are like some of my favorites, I would write them on the other piece of paper. And then I went back and be like, okay, make sure I hit those. So I probably wrote Pathology down and then was like, oh, I didn't see that. What year did it come out?
Nice.
But yeah, Pathology.
I did something similar, and then I went through my Blu-rays to kind of double check if any were missed. But that's one that unfortunately hasn't gotten a Blu-ray update as far as I'm aware. So that's why I missed it.
You've never seen Pathology?
No, I've watched the movie.
Okay.
I haven't seen a Blu-ray.
Okay, I was going to say, it's so good.
Yeah, actually, I think it was Jesse that got me to watch that one.
Jonas, you're really good at talking about like premises, so do you want to kind of break this one down without spoiling too much for people?
So, I guess you could say it's about a group of med students who are basically learning about autopsies. They're learning about how to catch murderers and how to like determine causes of death. So they're trying to one-up each other with like, oh, I could figure this out or I could figure that out. And then as the movie progresses, they start doing some illegal activities that I can't really get too far into because spoiler-ish, but it takes some twists and turns that you definitely do not see coming. And that was one of my favorite parts watching that movie, is I honestly didn't know who was going to survive. I thought anybody could die at any moment in that movie, and sometimes
they do.
They do, yeah.
So you liked it then?
Oh yeah, no, that was definitely a great movie.
I love it because like I have my autograph from Milo is from Pathology.
Yeah,
but modern times, all I think about is he's in This Is Us, which is just like a regular drama series. It's really good and everything, but he plays like this perfect father and everything, good representation of what a father is, and then he, you think about his earlier works and it's just kind of funny.
He's just cutting people up left and right.
I didn't consider that one, and that could be a strong contender for me. But what I actually went with is a little predictable for me. I went with The Strangers, which is one of my favorite horror films.
That makes sense.
It's a divisive horror film because it's not a very thrilling horror film, if that makes sense. It's definitely not a very fun horror film, but I think a lot of the scenes are effective and the scares are effective, and I like the themes and the imagery that the killers have going on.
It's fun to see Dennis get shot in the face.
Dennis from It's Always Sunny shows up. That Apparently, they show scenes of that movie in film school. Really? I don't know why specifically. I guess there's some things about it from a film perspective that people feel are worthy of showing off.
Well, there are some good shots in that movie. I can kind of remember a few of like the outdoor scenes being like whenever she's like trying to get from like the barn or whatever like back to the house. There's a couple of good shots there.
It's got the scene that is my go-to scene for what I like to see in horror films and what I expect to see in horror films to impress me. We talk a lot about how horror movies don't trust their audience and they'll dumb down scenes and they'll over-explain things, and there's a shot in The Strangers that executes it really well where it's just a slow shot of Liv's character hanging out in the cabin, and the man in the sack mask walks in the background, and it doesn't zoom up on him. It doesn't make a sound cue so you know he's there, and it doesn't do anything to alert you that he's there. It's just counting on you to be paying attention, or not, depending on when you notice him, that he's just standing in the background of the scene. It's a far out shot. And then after a while, he just kind of like creeps back in, and she doesn't notice he's there, and it's really effective. But you know that he's in the house at that point, and it's scenes like that make me really love the movie.
I think that must be what they're showing in film school, like, and that was my biggest like peeve with the newest season of Stranger Things right now, is that I just thought they did the exact opposite.
They over-explained.
Instead of showing, they told. But that's like storytelling in movies, number one. Show, don't tell. Show that something is going on. It's a visual medium. You don't have to add the da-da! Like, you don't need that. Audio jump scares are becoming one of my biggest I hate this freaking crap in movies right now.
Some of the other honorable mentions for this year, a big one that I personally love that's also divisive, Cloverfield came out this year. And that was a big one. I know you hated it.
I have all three on Blu-ray.
The worst found footage movie probably ever. It just
they're running the McPherson tapes.
They are running through the streets, and you're just like, good God, somebody use the camera.
And I think that might be another one of those things where, look, I'm not making you watch anything, but I think that could be another example of your memories kind of developing what you think is this terrible movie. But I don't think you would hate it as much if you rewatched it. Found footage was not as popular when that movie came out. And they've definitely done it to death by this point. And we've seen tons of found footage films. I think that's part of it. I think Cloverfield was done really well. The monsters are done well. They only show you enough to keep you in it, but they don't overexpose the monsters and things to where you're not afraid of them anymore. I stand by Cloverfield. I think the poster art's really cool too. Just the Statue of Liberty, but with the top part missing from it.
Yeah.
It's good.
It was kind of the opposite of Planet of the Apes, where their poster art was the Statue of Liberty, just the head, sitting on a beach.
Maybe it's after Cloverfield.
I was going to say, to your point about the camera thing when they're running down the street, I think that's more realistic, though, because if you're in a life or death situation, you're going to be like, hey, let me get a steady shot of this as I'm walking calmly down the street.
Have you not been on Facebook or TikTok? That's all people do when people are dying. They just get their cameras out
well,
and they just film them.
We don't want to be that realistic.
Mirrors came out that year.
Oh, that was a rough watch.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember it being a good one. That it's got that iconic, awful death scene in the tub. Oh man, it's just, yeah.
I'm thinking of I hadn't confused my head. I was thinking of the Evil Dead remake, when she has the glass.
Oh no, I'm gonna say anything from the Evil Dead remake is probably more horrific.
Yeah, you're right. It's okay. I cut it off.
But the concept of mirrors, if you're not familiar, is that anytime you're looking in the mirror, you're not looking back at yourself, a reflection of yourself. You're looking into a parallel world where there's a creature that has the appearance of yourself. it's one of those movies where after you watch the movie, it makes you question the way you look at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
I seen a video a long time ago of this little girl looking in the mirror, and she looks away, and then it like stays like for a minute.
Yeah,
and then she looks back.
That
And
kind of thing.
Probably completely altered, probably completely fake, because I'm not a believer in like the ghosts or anything. But that was probably the creepiest thing I've ever seen in my life.
So this movie plays off of that.
Try to psych out the mirror every once in a while. I look at it and I'm like, gotcha.
Just like one of those urban legend videos you see on the internet, and you're like, is this fake or could it be a real thing?
Okay, the mirror thing. Going back to Evil Dead again. The original 2 Evil Deads. The very first Evil Dead, they had one of the... Like, even today, I wish somebody would try and pull off the same effect again, because it was so effective. Bruce Campbell's looking at a mirror, and just goes up to it, and touches it, and it ripples, and it's water. And, like, the water drops go off of his finger, like, back in the mirror, and he's, like, screaming and, like, running away from it. In the second one... He's, like, looking at the mirror like, we're okay. I'm okay. And then his reflection just reaches through the mirror, grabs his shoulders. We just cut up our girlfriend with a chainsaw. Does that sound fine? And then all of a sudden he's, like, getting choked by him and he realizes he's choking himself. Like, oh, man. You can't go wrong with the Evil Dead series.
Jonas, it just brings back your fond memories because you always choke yourself in the bathroom.
And you always...
I choke myself everywhere. Not just the bathroom.
I thought you were going to be like, it brings us back to those fond memories. In part 1, where he didn't pick Evil Dead, but I did.
Yeah, I'm making up for it now. Forgive me, Sam.
I Sell the Dead came out that year. Has anyone seen I Sell the Dead?
I have not, but I have heard of it.
Ron Perlman and Dominic Monaghan from Lord of the Rings and Lost. That's more of a... I want to say that's more of a horror comedy. But
I wonder if that's a remake, too.
Maybe.
That with a title like that sounds like a movie that was made in the 1960s.
The Ruins came out that year. That's a pretty solid one. And that's one that I've read the book for. And that's one that I got Jonas a hardcover book copy of. And I'm assuming you haven't read it yet.
Not yet. I have not cracked it open yet. But I've just thought about getting back into reading some novels instead of just Junji Ito manga. I've been addicted to for like the last year.
And you're going to be even more addicted to because I shared that link with you that they're coming out with more animated Junji Ito.
The book, The Ruins, is better. I know people say the books are always better. I don't necessarily agree with that, but the book for The Ruins is better. But the film's still fun. Oh, well, fun might not be the right word. It's a really hard watch, isn't it?
There's nothing wrong with screaming flowers, I'm sure.
Do you think that reading horror is better because you can use your own perspective and imagination to psych yourself out in a specific way that might not be someone else's direction that they're putting off in a film?
Yes, but I don't think that's the case with this one particularly. A lot of times things get cut from films for time, and you don't hear the character's thoughts in their head unless they give it a narration. So this one has a lot of survival explanation and stuff in the book because one of the characters is kind of a Boy Scout, you know? And so it's about them. They get stuck on this pyramid and they're not allowed to leave or else they'll get murdered. And so not only are there carnivorous plants, but like they're just trying to survive without food and water in the sun. And there's a lot to it like that, of them just trying to get through the days and get water and stuff.
There's some exploration parts. There's some, I can't believe this is actually happening. This can't be real. Somebody gets injured at one point and they have to try and do triage surgery on them with no anesthetic or anything else.
There's a lot of torture elements in it.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't think, but yeah, like I said, Hard Watch describes it pretty accurately. But a lot of that survival, like, it's tough just to get through the day kind of stuff doesn't get translated as well into the film from the book. And I think that's why the book's better.
See, no, I was thinking the same thing whenever he was talking about asking that question about, do you think it's easier to visualize it with a book instead of just having someone else do it for you with a movie. I was thinking about Dr. Sleep and how...
I still haven't watched it for some stupid reason. I own it, so don't spoil it.
But I read the book like more than a year before the movie came out, and some of the ways they describe the villains in this one, like you see their true forms in the book, and they are just disturbing. Like they describe one of them as just being witch-like, almost skeletal being with one single large tooth. And I'm like, that is disturbing to even think about.
Reminds me of like some sort of illustration from the Scary Stories That Tell in the Dark.
Kind of. It depends on where your mind goes with it, but that's not in the movie. They don't actually ever show like their true forms, but I guess that wasn't really a thing. And the ending was completely different from book to movie. But then...
I think it works.
It did. I didn't hate it, and I think that they did kind of the impossible with doing, like, the book version was a straight-up sequel to the book version. But they had to then take the book version sequel and shoehorn it in to the movie version sequel and play off of that one instead of the book version. So it's like a weird timeline continuation, but they made it work.
Yeah. It's good.
Is that all?
That's also Mike Flanagan, who did Haunting a Hill House, Midnight Mass,
Right.
Bly Manor, and Oculus, as we talked about before.
Is that all we had then for 2008?
Yep.
So we need to take 5 seconds of shame. For me and you, Jesse, just give me 5 seconds. You're being shamed, and I'm being shamed. Because
Shame.
last year,
Shame!
we forgot something really important.
Last year, we forgot something important.
2007. Don't look.
I don't have it in my notes, so...
You forgot funny games.
Oh, insert their opening song.
We love funny games.
I know.
And we always talk about doing it for the Halloween party. And it's always been such a running gag. And like my agenda planner back in high school, back in the day, we would cut out pictures, black and white pictures we would print off.
Because we would print them at school.
And we would have, I had a bunch of funny game pictures with like him dropping the eggs and everything. And him, I was Tubby, I think. And he was the other guy and the boss. And we had so many pictures in my agenda planner of funny games. It was always something we parodied and always something we talked about doing. And like, we've always really enjoyed it. And for some reason, we both just...
Didn't even...
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I need to say something about this. When it comes to movies, your perception can change the way you watch a movie, right? So like you watch a movie with a group of friends that's a bad movie, you can still have a good time and enjoy the movie. Whereas if you sit and watch it by yourself, you're probably not going to enjoy it as much. There's a lot to say about whether you find comedy in a movie or not affecting your viewing of a movie. Like if you didn't find Troll 2 funny, then you would not enjoy it. And I think there's something to be said about this kind of discussion for funny games.
I don't know how you can find Troll 2 not funny. It's impossible.
For the longest time...
Are you about to betray me and say you no longer like funny games?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I only like the original Swedish version.
I just need to explain... I have a kind of... I don't want to say traumatic, because it's not traumatic, but just... I had this realization years back. I'll get to that, but it's... I always watched funny games as a comedy, as a horror comedy. And I don't know if that's the same with you. I'm assuming it is, because of our pictures and the way we would laugh and joke. And then, I want to say like 6 or 7 years ago, I came to this realization that nobody else did. Nobody else. And it was always talked about, like, this is one of the hardest watch movies that you can find. Or, like, one and done movies where you never want to go back to this again. And, like, the director was basically saying, like, you're a terrible person for liking messed up movies like this. If you like these movies, you're making this happen in the movie by being a viewer. And I had this instance where a friend from work came over and we were like, let's watch a movie. And I was like, oh, I love Funny Games. And we put on Funny Games and we watched it. And Leanna and myself and this friend, it was dead silence. And I remember afterwards, he was like, why in the hell did you make me watch this horrific movie? I ever since then, I've been like,
you shouldn't be ashamed.
Like,
I guess I'm just a broken person.
It kind of made me wonder, you know. I obviously, like I said, it's about perception and how you look at what you watch. And that person was not viewing it as a comedy at all.
Hearing this almost makes me feel like I would only like it more.
What?
It's double layered.
What?
It's double layered. You can watch it and laugh and have a good time and think about the way we perceived it in the past, and you can watch it and just be like, this is awesome. They're so sadistic. And they give zero Fs, and they just toy with them because they don't care at all, and that's awesome.
Yeah. I like Michael Pitt as one of the leads. He was in Boardwalk Empire.
R.I.P.
It's where most people, I think, know him from now.
Yeah, it was good. But yeah, like, if you watch that without thinking, oh, this is funny, like, this is just a movie, yeah, really dark, horrific stuff happens. But I guess I always just assume there's a part where they literally rewind what happened in the movie
one of my favorite
to undo a death. And, like, to me, I never would have taken that seriously.
Should I not spoil the ending then, just in case we've intrigued anyone? Maybe we shouldn't.
Yeah.
Watch Funny Games. I won't spoil it just for you guys, okay?
Enjoy that cat in the bag.
Watch that. It's so good. I mean, it's good, but it's almost dry.
Yeah,
but it's good.
I viewed it as dry humor, and I think that's probably the best way to view it. But I mean, to each their own.
Yeah, I'm doubling down, as Jonas said. I think that I equally like the sadisticness.
Well, I mean,
I've only ever got to watch it once because every time I try to turn it on, Zach makes me turn it off.
And it's part of this, right?
Yeah.
Like, it must be just your mindset when you go into it.
And this is perfectly leading me into my 2009 pick.
All right.
Where I could make the same argument that we're making for all of this, for about Funny Games for this movie, but I'm the only one in the world that's going to say it.
All right.
Because the opening was hilarious to me, but also, like, anyone else that sees this and they're just going to give me the weirdest look, like, you find this funny? And I've just got to be like the Joker, like, I do. And I'm tired of pretending that it's not.
Perfect.
All right.
But it is Antichrist.
Oh, no.
God.
So, I will say that I haven't seen it. I'm assuming you haven't seen it.
Is this a Russ Rader reviewed film?
No.
Like Jesus Christ the Douchebag or something like that?
No, this is a popular film that is popular for being a horrific watch. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah. This is probably on the top 10 list of hardest to watch movies.
Yeah, and that's why I haven't watched it. But it's Willem Dafoe.
Yeah. Right?
Ooh. Love Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, like, nobody's
Say
arguing
something, Jonas.
that...
I feel like you were going to... Willem Dafoe, he dresses up like a drag queen all the time or something wild.
I mean, the only thing I'll say about Mr. Dafoe, and it's very apt with this movie, because there is a lot of nudity in this movie.
You're going to talk about his penis.
I have to talk about Willem Dafoe's
penis.
Has there ever been a podcast in the history of podcasts where Willem Dafoe is brought up and no one talks about his freakishly large penis?
Does he have a freakishly large penis?
The rumor is that his penis was so big that they had to get a stunt double because it was too weird that his penis was that big.
For this movie.
Like, his stunt double had a smaller penis.
Let me tell you, smaller for the stunt double. And I want to say it in the Orgasmo way. If there's any Orgasmo fans out there, the stunt cock was massive. It was huge.
It was just like curved arm.
I mean, it was... If I'm going to go with just sight alone and just kind of guess, it was at least 9 inches.
What was that movie? Was it like Hall Pass or something? He passes out and the two naked guys gotta get him. And he's like, "Can you guys switch sides?" The big dude's got his dick next to his face, and they switch. So the little guy.
I don't think I've seen that one.
You know what I'm talking
funny.
about, Jesse?
Yeah, that's funny.
But no, it's... So I'll just say what the opening of the movie is that I find hilarious. And then from there, you could just decide if you want to watch the movie or not. Probably not. I'm going to be honest. I don't foresee anyone that hasn't seen Antichrist going, "Oh man, I really want to watch it now."
Rowling.
So, a couple, husband and wife, are having sex as soon as the movie opens, and it is like as soon as the scene starts, it's basically like XXX like pornography. Like, I'll just warn you now, if you're sensitive at all, don't even try to watch this movie. But at the same time, they're banging out. Their 1-year-old son is crawling out of a window. And it happens exactly what you're thinking. The baby falls to its death while they're banging out in the other room. And that's how it opens.
Yeah, not making any lists for me.
This is where, during the editing process, put in some clown honk noises.
You're a sick man.
I'm not doing that.
So the rest of the movie is like him taking his wife to a cabin to try and decompress after everything that happens, while she just
that works out
hates
great
him.
in every horror movie, right?
Let's go into a cabin in the woods. Mm-hmm. It's another cabin in the woods, but yeah, she just despises him. He's trying to keep things together, and she also has mental illness, and it devolves so fast into just, I don't know what's going on. They're trying to kill each other.
I'll just say I haven't seen it, but I know that it starts with child death, and then I've heard that it just devolves into weird sex mutilation fantasy stuff.
Yeah, that's accurate.
All right, cool.
And that's his favorite one.
Justin.
It makes
I
it.
have the Criterion Blu-ray.
Oh my gosh.
I'll pass.
You can't put on funny games.
I wouldn't dare.
What makes it sick is the fact that there were so many good horror movies this year. So I went with The Collector as my pick. Josh Stewart stars in that one.
I really liked how the use of the Korn song in that one.
I'll just say I'm surprised you went with The Collector over the Friday the 13th remake.
I love the Friday the 13th remake, but The Collector, I don't know, like it's so good.
Yeah?
Like, it's like, what if Jigsaw just came to you and didn't take you to someplace and you just didn't even know what the hell was happening?
And then, it's by the same people that made Saw.
And you know,
is it?
Yeah.
And
that makes a lot of sense.
And you know that the initial concept of what became The Collector, it was supposed to be like some sort of prequel to Saw. Like the character, The Collector, was supposed to be what became Saw or something. It was something on, like, the universes were intertwined, and that would eventually lead to the Saw franchise.
That makes a lot of sense. I never knew that. But yeah, The Collector is so good.
I just noticed that the other day when I was looking at my Blu-ray copy of it. It actually said, from the creators of Saw, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, such a good movie.
Collector's a good one. Josh Stewart?
Yeah. But it's, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do love the Friday the 13th remake, and I don't want to dwell on it too long, but I don't think it's the same case as it would be for Freddy vs. Jason, where I go back and then hate it. I do think that the remake for Friday the 13th is super solid. They get creative with the kills, they kind of reinvent the wheel as far as making him more of a hunter. I know that some people don't like it because they feel like it deviates away from what the original was, but I think that they just improve upon it, honestly. I think it's a really solid film. Obviously, Jared Padalecki.
And what I'll say quick about that is what I generally say about these remakes and all of them to begin with. If you're having trouble accepting a remake, like, don't compare it to the original because it's never going to surpass.
And you still have the original, too.
Yeah, but it's never going to surpass that original concept of that first film. I compare it to the sequels and what the franchise has become, and is this a step back in the right direction? Or
Yes.
And I think that hands down that is for the Friday the 13th franchise.
And it's so sad because it's the last we've seen of him because of lawsuits.
Yeah.
It was okay. I don't hate it as much as I did when it first came out, but it's still, if you haven't seen it, give it a watch. I wanted to say one thing about the Collector before we moved on to Jesse's, but I feel so bad for the cat in that movie. Man, that was the part that I hated to watch.
I don't remember the cat at all.
See, that shows what kind of a person you are.
Leanna and I had first started dating, and I left my case. I have like a big 300 count zip-up case with my DVDs in it. And we had talked about watching The Collector, and I left them at her place, and I went to work, and she had messaged me, I'm watching The Collector now. Like, she had just put it on. She had no idea what she was getting into. But I want to say she told me that she cried when the cat thing happened.
Oh, wow. Like, people are being... Now, you judge me, and I know many people judge people who aren't, like, obsessed with animals, but, like, people are being murdered, but she cries over the cat.
Yeah.
What kind of a sick person does that?
Dude, any horror movie, if you murder a person, people are going to be like, well, saw that coming. If you murder a dog, a cat, a bird, it almost doesn't even matter what kind of animal it is. People will be like, this is the worst movie ever. I'm never watching this again.
And I don't have that mentality, but a lot of people do. I've been around several people where I'm showing them a horror film, and they'll turn to me because I'm revealing the horror film to them, and they'll be like, if this dog dies, or if this cat or this animal dies, I'm quitting the movie. And I'm not
Halloween, the original Halloween. He freaking eats a dog.
My favorite movie of all time, and then I'll get off the subject, is John Wick. So I'm not saying I don't get, some of the greatness that comes with
the greatness.
Well, at least it's not Cannibal Holocaust.
The compromise.
Because we could have actual animal death on screen.
They weren't domesticated, but yeah, it was really messed up. I will say that the cat death in The Collector is really messed up. He gets stuck to the acid, and then he tries to save it and throws it up, and it catches on the windowsill, but then it triggers a trap. It's pretty horrific.
It's kind of funny at the same time.
He had 8 more lives.
He had more lives.
I had 2 other honorable mentions. I had The Fourth Kind, which I thought was very creepy, and which we watched in your ex's basement.
Yeah.
And then A Perfect Getaway also came out this year. That year.
I don't have A Perfect Getaway because I didn't have it as a horror film.
I was kind of thinking the same thing on that one too.
It's
like a slasher-esque,
it's definitely a whodunit murder mystery, but if that counts, that's my movie because I love that movie. However, I kind of had an oddball one for this category that one could argue the same point I'm making, that the movie I picked isn't a horror movie. Although I would slap that person in the face and tell them that they're wrong. I picked Coraline.
What?
Oh, you get ready to slap.
Slap ready. Coraline is hands down a horror movie. It's about
a kid's horror
little
movie.
girl that goes into an alternate dimension, and everybody's the same, but they have buttons sewn in their eyes. And turns out she's actually a creepy Spider Woman. And there's dead ghost children, and
I'm saying this strictly as the devil's advocate, but there's plenty of creepy things that happen in lots of Disney movies, but it doesn't make them a horror movie.
It's 100% a creep fest throughout the entire movie.
It has Tim Burton vibes. I know it's not Tim Burton, but it has Tim Burton vibes.
Not even that anymore. Sorry.
I just feel like the dad from that movie is like all of us some days.
James and the Giant Peach is kind of creepy vibed, but it's not a horror movie.
James and the Giant Peach has some horror elements, but it doesn't carry through the whole film the way that I think Coraline does.
I'll give it to you. I'm just picking on you for the most part.
I definitely thought about this, and I do think the thing that I always say to describe Coraline in a nutshell is that it's horror for kids. And the first word being horror. And I think it's a really well-made film. And we talked about stop motion not too long ago, and this what goes into that and the strenuous process, and that applies to Coraline. You know,
it's a magnificent art form for sure.
They did a lot of oddball stuff that they took chances with mainstream audiences. There's just some of the characters and the storytelling. So yeah, Coraline was the best horror film of 2009 in my opinion.
Did you have any honorable mentions real quick, and then we can...
I had a lot. Did you have another honorable mention you wanted to bring up?
No.
The Children of the Corn remake came out that year, and I know it was kind of straight to TV, but I like it better than the original.
I don't think I've watched it, honestly.
It follows the original book better. Like, when the original Children of the Corn came out, it was at a time where movies had to be, like, the couple in the books are fighting the whole time, and they're going through rough patches, and in the movie, they're, like, perfect couple, kind of generic movie thing going on. This one has the couple from the books. I want to say Children of the Corn had a happier ending, the original. Don't they, like... I mean, you don't have to say, but I want to say that they, like, get out okay or something. Yeah. And this one has a more, like, balanced ending. So I remember, and the little kid I liked that plays Isaac, is that his name? Isaac?
Yeah, the leader of them.
I liked that one. Then you brought up The Fourth Kind. That's one of the few movies that freaks me out. Although I know Jonas and I have talked about that, and Jonas, you hated it, or that was one that you shut off before you finished it
because you were scared.
There were too many scenes where I'm just like, this is dumb. Like, I don't know what they're trying to do here.
But that was another one that I really, a lot of times with film, you know what you're getting into. It's a film, and you know it's all fake. And this was another one that blurred the lines where it was like, ooh, how much of this is real? And alien abduction stuff always gets to me a little more than other horror movie monsters. So The Fourth Kind was one that I thought about picking just because it was that effective. And the owl parts, I still think about it. Just this owl that watches all of these people that don't know each other and have nothing in common. But they describe the same thing to the psychiatrist about this owl that just watches them all night. And it gives me chills just talking about it.
There's an owl right outside the window.
It's got a shot with the owl's head going all the way around like they can do. And it's just creepy. We talked about the Friday the 13th remake. Jennifer's Body came out that year. My Bloody Valentine 3D came out that year.
Oh boy.
Which I saw in theaters. And I have a really love-hate relationship with it. I liked it, then I hated it, and now I like it again. So
Jensen Ackles. We talked about it in part 1, I believe.
I just remember the naked woman running around all over the motel parking lot.
Yep.
Was it a truck stop? I forget. There's a semi involved for a second there. I remember that.
And there's a short lady that gets uppercutted with a pickaxe.
Yes. Yeah.
And stuck to the ceiling.
I just thought of Employee of the Month. They call you semi because you're built like a semi, or because you're semi-retarded.
And Justin, when we mentioned the orphanage, you asked about The Orphan. Well, this is the year that The Orphan came out.
I've not seen it.
And Zombieland came out that year, which was pretty popular at the time and brought humor to a genre that was getting old. And
yeah, that was definitely like the big movie for that year. I remember that one it was doing numbers, but that's one that I could only watch like once or twice, and now trying to go back to it again, it feels really stale. Like the jokes don't land as good as they did the first time.
Like a stale snowball.
Can't get one good Twinkie, right?
They're all snowballs.
Yeah.
All right, so Snowball Mike's now 20% off.
Really feel like we should do 2010.
It's your call. Jonas's call. I think we're gonna have to cut it there, guys. We've taken up so much of your time. This has, as predicted by some of us, taken us a lot longer to get through than those pesky 80s and 90s. So this is going to end up being a 3-part video. Ooh.
Is it good things come in threes or horrible things?
Well, that depends on which series we're talking about. And which series we'll talk about next time.
As we continue into the 2010s.
Next time, I'm going to discuss at least 3 of my top 5 favorite horror movies of all time.
Dang. All right.
This might turn into a 4-part series.
It's definitely getting on the heavier side of close to home horror and just horrors that I really, really like and go to.
Well, thank you for inviting us into your homes. Hopefully you'll be able to clean the blood off the walls. And thanks for listening to The Knife Shift.
They never will. They never do get it off the walls.
Cut. Get it?
Cut. It's like what you did there. Thanks for clocking in. Thanks for special guest Justin for joining us. And hopefully you guys stick around for part 3. Remember, join the Discord. Join the Knife Shift family.
It'll only take a slice of your time.
Yeah, and join us soon as we do a watch-along party for Antichrist and Funny Games.
We're not doing that.
See you later, guys.
Later. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Oh, man. I'm invincible.
How was that?
Hey, it was good.
Long. My butt's sore. So about the usual. I'm just kidding. Help me.
I'm putting it in
No,
there.
please don't.
They'll know the truth.
Roland expects that to be out tonight. So you gotta...
Rollins like outside the door. Did you put it up here? I don't know where.